Hello and welcome to the Exotic Pet Collective, where we talk about tarantulas, scorpions, inverts, and all pets exotic. I'm your host, Richard. You may know me from my YouTube channel, The Tarantula Collective. And today we have a special guest joining me to discuss insect art, arthropods, conservation, and more. But first, this week's episode is brought to you by thetarantulacollective.com. If you're looking for that perfect gift for the tarantula keeper in your life, head over to thetarantulacollective.com and pick up some Tarantula Collective t-shirts, beanies, hats, or hoodies. There are also stickers, posters, face masks, prints, and all kinds of other tarantula and invert-related merchandise. While you're there, you can also find care sheets, a list of reputable tarantula and exotic pet dealers, exotic pet enclosures and supplies, discount codes, and some other helpful resources. Find all things tarantula and exotic pet related, and stay connected and up to date with everything happening in the collective by signing up for the mailing list so you'll receive the collective newsletter. That's at thetarantulacollective.com. Now, today's guest is dedicated to portraying the importance and abundance of wildlife biodiversity our planet holds by creating recognizable and unique designs of the endless organisms that are among us. It is his goal to help with conservation by raising awareness of these living creatures, as well as helping other conservationists share their passion. Please welcome to the show, Jesse from Shapes in Nature.
Well, hello.
Hi, Jesse. How are you?
How you doing?
It's good to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a mix-up because I thought we were 4 hours away, and we were actually only 3 hours away, so I was like a half hour late. But I appreciate you sticking around.
No worries. I mean, yeah, I'm self-employed now, so I got time. You know.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about you. For people that may not know what Shapes in Nature is, can you just kind of give us an overview?
Well, yeah, I mean, Shapes in Nature is the company I founded, of course, but I guess, I don't know, because of Instagram and TikTok, a lot of people call me Shapes in Nature, so I guess I've kind of become Shapes in Nature as a person, I guess. I don't know, but it's social media is weird. But no, it's a clothing company, but I also sell stickers and pins and patches and buttons and all that kind of stuff. But the initial company itself is a clothing company, which is my shirts and whatnot. And they're all based off of my artwork, off of my designs that I've been drawing since 2004. And I have about 320 animals drawn. So I have plenty of images and designs to work with, of course. But yeah, I mean, you know, I started out drawing bugs. I like bugs. I've always liked bugs. Well, I guess I should say arthropods. I guess bugs is kind of a loose term, but arthropods, you know, whatever you want to say. Yeah. I like anything creepy crawly, you know, lizards, snakes, you name it. I love it all. Amphibians. And I just kind of I was in high school, and I didn't want to listen to my American government class, so I kind of started drawing in class. That was my art time. And I started drawing these shapes, and then I started realizing that I could form these shapes into animals. And I started making a few, and I made these cats, and which my aunt owns those originals. Those are my first ones I ever did. And then I started doing bugs and different, you know, butterflies and different things with faces in them. And then I realized that I really like drawing like this. And so, why not continue doing this? And so, I mean, from 2004 to about 2008, I'd probably amassed about 130 animals or so. And I was like, and then a friend of mine was kind of like, dude, we need to do something with this. Like, let's do something with this. And I was like, I just like drawing for me, you know, like I never, and then a lot of people that would see the designs would be like, man, I'd like a shirt of that, or like, that'd be a cool tattoo, you know? I'm like, well, go for it, you know?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So 2008 was kind of when my friend and I, his name's Daniel. He's my business partner actually now within Shapes in Nature. And we kind of thought of an idea of maybe making some shirts, and it never really happened. I ended up moving from San Diego to San Francisco, and then life was crazy there. And then I ended up moving up here to Portland in 2009. And we had been playing with the idea. We had 3 different names before Shapes in Nature, and like I had that tag name for quite some time, and I kept being like, what should the company name be? And then I realized, why wouldn't it be Shapes in Nature? And so I checked online to see if that website was there. And it was available. I could have sworn that shapesinnature.com would have been some like cat yoga website or something like that, you know? Like, I don't know.
No doubt.
You know, but it was there. So here we are. We started last year, January of last year. So we're going on our 2nd year anniversary coming up here on the 8th of January. So pretty stoked about it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So there's no cat yoga at all. That's what you're saying.
No, not that I know of. You know, and if I did, I stole it from that lady, and I feel really bad. So, you know.
So what? So mainly you're making shirts and stickers. Is that?
Yeah. I have my shirts, like I said, and I have about 9 different ones. But that's the main goal. So my goal is, and some of my shirts already do. Most of my shirts already do. But the whole purpose of my company is actually more than a clothing brand and more than selling stickers, is actually to be a conservation effort. And I want to raise awareness of, you know, different wildlife across the world that some we know about, you know, tigers, leopards, we know about these animals, some we don't, fossas, you know, coatimundis, things like that. Of course, many different insects that people have no idea that exist. I mean, it's even insects I don't even know exist, I'm sure I'd like to support. But the idea is to, when you buy one of our shirts, you are supporting that animal in some way specifically, and helping that animal within conservation and grow. So you are supporting something. This one, my bug shirts are going to start going to the Xerxes Society. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Xerxes Society, but it's
Not familiar. No, what is it?
Well, they're based out of Washington, I want to say, but they do stuff at the zoo as well. And they're basically arthropod protectors. You know, they're a nonprofit organization that funds research for different bees, bumblebees, honeybees, and different insects and whatnot, butterflies. And so I like to help support them. Of course, you know, any nonprofit organization does not ever get enough support, so sure. they always need help. You know? And so that's what my company is kind of here for. Is the goal is that I want to, you know, so much in conservation, when you see companies talk about endangered species or, you know, the ocean, you know, is polluted and all these kind of things, they show a lot of really, I guess, negative images, and it's impacting. I mean, it's important to show that stuff. Yes, there's a lot of pollution happening in our ocean. Plastic is everywhere. It's horrible. But I really wanted to create a company that would talk about those things and say, yes, we need to make these changes, but also make it tangible and show solutions. So the idea would be to, once COVID hit, we weren't really able to travel, but we want to start traveling and actually film these conservation efforts that we are supporting directly and show what they are doing to the public and say, hey, like this money really is going towards this program, and this is what they're doing, and you can help. And also make it accessible for people that may, you know, sometimes when you see polar bears or different animals in conservation not doing so well, like you kind of feel helpless in a way, like, well, I can't change that. Me as an individual, I can't do anything about that. Well, you can. And it's even simple changes. I mean, simple things, recycling, you know, being more conscious about where you are in nature. You know, when you're out there, make sure you pack everything that you took with you. Those kind of things, those simple little things of just opening your mind to awareness of kind of protecting the wildlife that's around you. And that's the goal of this company, is to really show like it's easy, it can be fun, you know, it's inspiring. And I really want to show the people that are doing it currently, you know, these scientists out there that are making a difference in the Amazon and in, you know, the deserts here in the Sonoran Desert, and all kinds of stuff is going on, and it's not getting publicized. Nobody knows about it. You know, I mean, you hear, you know, like, oh yeah, you probably assume that there's, you know, something out there helping polar bears, but do you see it happening? And we don't. And Polar Bear International is an amazing organization that is, you know, they go to Svalbard and Manitoba, and they go back and forth, and they actually are navigating and, you know, making sure these polar bears are surviving. It's incredible. And nobody, you know, like nobody, it's not on TV, it's not anywhere hardly. So that's the idea, is to bring that forward, I guess.
Okay, I think I got you. I'm a little slow, so I'm going to recap, make sure that I actually understand this. So you take pictures of just different inverts or animals, and then you draw them, and then you take that drawing, put it on a shirt like you're wearing right now. So it looks cool, it's fashionable, something that people would like. Hey, I want to wear that. So they buy that shirt, and so I guess on one hand, it's raising awareness of that species because now people are going to be asking them. So they're going to learn about that species, get some information on it. Other people are going to see it. So the awareness of that creature will be developed.
Right.
But also you're taking a portion of the profits from the selling of the shirts and you're donating that to different nonprofits.
Yes.
So I got that right. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I guess basically there's multiple things within this business. Is the video aspect is that we want to show people the active conservation that's happening, and at the same time you can help support it by buying a shirt. And so and you know, one thing that gets me a lot of times is like you see these, I don't know, some certain companies and they'd be like, you know, 0.5% of every sale goes towards something. You know, we don't kid around. We're doing 30%, you know, 30 to sometimes even 80% depending on the project. We have a California condor shirt, and 80% of the proceeds goes back to the Oregon Zoo for further research on protecting the California condor, which was pretty much almost completely brought to the brink of extinction in, I want to say, 1997. So there was only like 30 left in the wild. And the Oregon Zoo actually was one of the people that like got them, you know, they were taken out of the wild, and they were basically bred in-house and then redistributed in the wild. And now we have like, I think like 400 or 600 condors in the wild right now or something like that since then. So it's pretty awesome. You know, it's a great story. Yeah. And that's the best part is like, there's so many awesome success stories, and I just want to share that. I want to get that known, you know, and but I wanted to include my art in there. You know, I have all these animals drawn, and so why not make something tangible and fun that people can feel good about, so they can wear an awesome shirt, and they also gave back. And, you know, it does bring awareness. You know, it really, you know, a lot of people might ask, oh, what is that on your shirt? What animal? You know, that's why I like to do the not so known animals as well, you know, is because like anyone can get a panda shirt. You know, you can go on eBay and, right, you know, or Amazon and probably buy like 30 within seconds, you know, but where are you going to get a Goliath beetle shirt? You know, I mean,
right. Yeah. And that's something I've noticed just from my short time on social media, is that if you ask somebody to give you $5 for a cause, they'll be like, no, that's my hard-earned money. But if you say, will you give me $30 for a t-shirt and $5 of that will go to this cause, they'll be like, yeah, here you go. It's like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so, that's just it.
That's an effective way of raising funds for sure.
It is. And I like the video aspect too, of getting to do both, of really getting to kind of have that social media presence, but also get to be a clothing company at the same time. And that's where, like with my Instagram page, it's kind of different than like a clothing brand page, because most of the time it's just all about the clothing. And I kind of just like post whatever I want on there, you know, so me partying with bugs.
Let's talk about that Instagram page, because I see you on there quite a lot, especially with Peter from Bugs and Spider, Bugs and Cyberspace.
Bugs and Spiderspace. Ooh. Like, that sounds awesome. And
copyrighted that, Peter.
Yeah,
you can't
I'm patenting that, Peter.
Yeah. But you guys do like I mean, I've seen you do live streams. I've seen you do and you're also on TikTok. Like every time I get on TikTok, for whatever reason, the algorithm is like, you will love this guy's videos, because I am bombarded by you like running around in the forest and through nature picking up bugs. And I think there was one you were dancing to Saturday Night Fever or something like that. Yeah. Did that happen? Hey, was that you?
That was that. It was that Party Rock song.
It was the Bee Gees.
Ooh,
was it not the Bee Gees?
I haven't done the Bee Gees one yet, but that is one I'm definitely going to do. It was that Party Rock song, and I did had the bugs dancing, and then I came in. I don't know, man. You know, it's COVID, man. I'm getting desperate here.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this one was you running around with a net through the woods, kind of doing a little disco dance.
Oh, that too.
Is that the one you're talking about?
That was on Peter's. Peter did that of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
any chance he can get to catch me doing the weird stuff I do all the time, which, I mean, you know, you have to realize, like, bug collecting is, you know, for me, I'm used to it, but I have to understand that to see another person from an outside perspective, see a full-grown adult with this like big bug net running around in a field is probably kind of weird and strange to that person, you know? So,
yeah.
So you kind of have to be willing to make fun of yourself, you know? You kind of have to just accept it. And, you know, I have a few techniques though, you know, I always get stopped. Like no matter what, when I go bug collecting, like someone always is asking what I'm doing, you know, the whole like what you catching or what you doing kind of thing, you know, and you can like sense it too. And sometimes I usually welcome it because I love talking about bugs and I want to like educate people on it, you know, so I'm all about that. But sometimes I just want to catch that bug and be like left alone. So I have techniques to like avoid those people, you know, so you have a jogger going by and you see you slowing down and you kind of like realize it. You catch the bug really fast. I call this the Mortal Kombat technique. All right. Because you catch the bug really fast and then you go, your soul is mine. And then they don't want to talk to you anymore. They just kind of leave you alone. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, see you later. You know, it works every time. You know, it's awesome. Nice. Or there's
until somebody calls the police.
Yeah, true. Which would make it even more interesting, honestly, because what are they going to do? You know, my other technique I have is the when people always ask me, oh, what you catching, you know, and a good way to get them to just like kind of stop is you kind of have to be very serious though, you know, and just like kind of casually and serious and nonchalant when they're like, you just have to say something really random, you know, they're like, oh, what you catching? You just go, bald eagles. And then you go back to what you're doing. Right. And then, you know, they kind of go, oh, that's a joke. And they think that's funny at first, but you say it serious enough to where they kind of just stop and they're like, is this guy for real? Like, you know, am I, you know, like, and it works, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, I think up until this point in my life, if I saw a grown man out there with a bug net, I would keep my distance. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what he's doing, but I don't want any part of that trouble.
Oh man. I mean, oh gosh. Okay. You know what? Peter would want me to tell this story because God, do I got space for this story? I don't even know if I got space, but there's this place here in Oregon. It's called Savi Island. Right. And it's this little island that goes in between, the Columbia River. It kind of like rings around anyways. There's a beach there and everything. Well, I didn't realize when I was first catching bugs there that there was a clothing optional beach there. I wasn't aware of that. And so I was catching these road duster grasshoppers and I saw a huge one, still probably the biggest one I've ever seen. And I've still never caught it, of course. And while I was catching it, there was this fence that came all the way down to the water. And I was like, what the heck? Why is there this fence here? Like I'm in a nature area. And I was just so confused by that. And so this grasshopper jumped over that fence and I was like, oh, screw that. This is like the biggest grasshopper I've seen in Oregon. I need this thing, you know, I got to see it. And so I actually get in the water and actually come around the fence and I'm still trying to catch it, you know, and it keeps jumping away from me. And it's about 5 minutes past this fence and I'm almost there. This grasshopper's finally slowed down and I just am like just about to get it. And then this like shadow appears in my face. And it's just this completely nude guy. And just like right directly in my face, it's just like, woof, like right there. He just goes, what you catching, huh? Huh? Like just like right. And it was just like flap. And I was just like, oh my gosh, not that, you know? And then I look around and everybody around me is naked. And they're all looking at me like I'm weird. And I'm like, oh, I'm the weird one. Okay. You know, like, sorry, let me, hold on. Like, give me a minute, you know? Jeez. Oh my God.
Gotta fit in.
Oh my God. It was so.
When in Rome.
And it got away. It definitely got away.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was.
I stubbed my toe at the beginning of this story. I just want to make sure you're in Oregon and there are clothing optional beaches.
Yes.
Isn't it a little cold for that up there?
No, well, not in the summer, you know. I mean,
okay, I guess
not according to that guy. That thing waving in my face. All right,
Jesus,
yeah, it was horrible. It was life scarring for a bug collector. You know,
I gotta get out of here.
Oh my God, you know what's funny is I just kind of like looked around and then everyone was kind of staring at me and I just went, hello everyone, and I just kind of like walked on and kept catching bugs. I was just like, you know what, I could go this 2 ways, but I'm just gonna go,
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. But it's fun. I mean,
do you have a YouTube channel, or do you mainly just do Instagram and TikTok?
So I am working on my YouTube channel, and Peter has been very much making me, want to get on YouTube, which I do want to get on YouTube. It's just I had to get used to putting my phone this way, and I feel like YouTube's just kind of different. It's generally longer videos, and I'm so used to just doing these short little like minute-long videos. So I'm working on it. We have all of our podcasts of our live streams that we do on Instagram. I do have those posted on my YouTube with video. And I have a few videos, but that's actually coming, though. Unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't really been traveling too much, so I haven't really been able to get the footage that I need, because all the prior footage that I had was vertical format video, so I had hardly anything horizontal. But I'm working on some really cool art videos, too, so if people like my art, I'm going to start doing videos where we do go out in nature, and I'm going to draw the animals that we see on that trip, and I'm going to kind of combine all that in a video. So I'm going to we'll talk about all the animals we see out and wherever we went, and then I'm going to take those home and or not take the animals home, but take some photos home and whatnot, and then draw those particular animals and make a video that's showing that, and then of course release stickers and different things of those animals as well. So it's just kind of a new aspect of I've really been trying to have a purpose with my artwork. And instead of just drawing animals at random, because that's what I used to do. I just used to like have this list, and I would just, okay, I'll draw a cheetah. Okay, I'll draw this, and not really have any story to tell with it. And so that's what I'm going to start doing from now on, is to really have a story with every design that I make. So it kind of has a reason for it. Hence, I kind of started doing that when I did the Australian sticker packs. I did 2 actually. When Australia was hit by the fires earlier this year in January-ish, I decided to draw an animal every day for 15 days straight. I drew 15 animals, and then I released a sticker pack, and I sold 120 of them, and I donated all of the proceeds back towards Wildlife Warriors, which they successfully rescued over 90,000 different animals in Australia that were affected by the fires. Pretty incredible stuff. And if you don't know... Yeah, oh yeah. And so then I did a second series sticker pack, I want to say in June, because after COVID kind of hit, I didn't want to do it again. I was going to do it in that following March, but with COVID, like I said, I just kind of pushed it back a little bit. And then we sold out of those, and we raised about, I want to say $1,400 for Wildlife Warriors.
Very cool.
And do you know who they are? Have you ever heard of Wildlife Warriors?
No, tell us about them.
So Wildlife Warriors,
I'm not familiar.
They were founded by the crocodile hunter, actually. Steve Irwin started Wildlife Warriors, and so his family runs it. The Irwins run it at the Australia Zoo, and it's a nonprofit organization that protects the animals of Australia. So it's pretty. I mean, not even just Australia. They have a whole team everywhere that is protecting animals all over the globe, which is really amazing. And of course, it's the Irwins, which has a big place in my heart, of course, because Steve Irwin, for me, was a legend, So, but they're really cool, and they're definitely worth checking out.
I mean, you seem to really be into the conservation aspect, and I wanted to talk about that. But first, I just wanted to give you props for like at least acknowledging and having some awareness on the difference in essentially like. One thing that drives me crazy is when I go to watch a YouTube video and it's been shot vertically instead of horizontally. I'm like, why did you even upload that? It drives me crazy. But the same on like TikTok, when somebody, I've done it myself, has a vertical or a horizontal video on TikTok, and it's like, you got to go with the aspect ratios of the platform if you want people to watch it. It's
so true. And learning to do both, having like, here, I'm going to film this bug like this, and then to take it and then film it like that. And it's a bug. So it can be so hard to do that, because you're filming a bug pollinating and then it's gone, and you're like, well, that was great. Bye.
Yeah. It's something I struggle with. Cause I started on making YouTube videos. So everything that I've ever shot is in a vertical format, right? A horizontal format. And then I'm like, well, I need to kind of branch out get on other platforms and I start posting reels on Instagram and create a TikTok, and I'm realizing like my video formats aren't like they're not very compatible, and I gotta like essentially like take that horizontal video and then like use a third of it. You know what I mean? Like kind of really, so it appears on like for a good frame size, I guess, for TikTok, which usually is very frustrating because I try to take old footage and cut it up and release that on TikTok. And, a lot of times, I filled the entire frame with the tarantula or whatever. So there's no way to do that. So now it's like every time I shoot something, I'll shoot for a while horizontally for YouTube and then turn the camera over and shoot vertically. And I'm like, this is just too much work. Like, I don't know. Why am I doing this to myself?
Trust me. I know. Well, I mean, I went from never filming myself drawing. Drawing for me was always like my private time. I'm a very outgoing person. So going back and drawing, and then Peter, thanks to Peter, he convinced me to start really filming me drawing and making videos of that, which is a great idea. And of course I'm doing it, but having the video aspect while I'm trying to draw is kind of a struggle for me because when I get in the zone, I'm in the zone, so I have to draw for a while and then go, okay, I should probably change position and then move the camera here or something like that. And then I have to have a camera that's showing my time lapse kind of thing. And then I have to go, oh, I should probably put it in vertical format so then I could post on TikTok as well. And then it's just like, what should have taken me like, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours to draw this design. It's taking me like 5 because of like, stopping what I'm doing, moving the camera, and then being like, where the hell was I?
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's why people always ask me this, to go, why do you never film yourself drawing the design in pencil first? Because I always draw in pencil first. It's because I could not film myself trying to create, because I'm looking at an image or I'm looking at a collection of images. I'm creating this design. And there's no way that I could like try to get different angles while I'm trying to create this design. So what I decided to do is I'm going to do the outline and then I'll just only film myself inking it in. So that way I don't have to worry about the creativity aspect.
That's a good idea. I think that a lot of people that don't make videos don't have an appreciation for how much actual work goes in.
Oh, yeah.
Like you'd see, a 2-minute video and you're like, probably took them 2 minutes to make. And it's like, it probably took them a half an hour just to set it up and then film for 10 minutes. It's something I never thought about. It never crossed my mind until this is way before I ever made a YouTube video, but I was a huge fan of Survivor Man. Did you ever watch that show?
Oh, yeah,
I think it was on
course.
Discovery.
Oh yeah.
And there was like, I've been watching it for a season or so. And then they had an episode where he was like pretty much showing how he filmed it. Cause it's just him filming it. And he was talking about how, if I have to hike, for 3 hours, it actually takes me about 6 or 7 hours to do it because I set up my camera and then walk, for 1,000 feet and then have to turn back around, come pick that camera up and then move it to its next location ahead of me and then walk back and then walk. I was like, oh man, so you're like doing everything twice just because you have to go back and pick up your camera, walk ahead and set up your camera and then like do the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, for some reason, like there's just, maybe it's that fourth wall or something. You see it and just kind of assume like, the guy's alone, but it's still like, there's just a disconnect where, well, he actually had to stop what he's doing, move that camera, refocus, go back and then act like he, just picked up where he left off.
Well, and that's, yeah. Yeah.
So like that gave me an awareness, but I didn't realize how much work it was until I started doing, like filming my own videos. And it's like, now I have to, sometimes rehousing a tarantula is difficult in and of itself and now I'm filming myself trying to do that. So it's like adding 3 more layers to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen those videos that you've done and they're just like, especially those damn arboreal tarantulas, man. I swear, I don't know what it is about those things. They're so pretty, but they're so damn mean. I had a sun tiger. I had a sun tiger for a while. Yeah. And, you would like just the air from like opening the cage and it would just come out and like attack the log it lived in. I'm like, I'm good. Just like,
Yeah. They can be a little cantankerous, that's for sure.
Oh,
but it's something that it's given me a lot of appreciation. And I understand like, I get frustrated because people are like, why don't you do a video on this? And it's like, cause I'm just one person. Like, I don't have that kind of time to make that video.
Why don't you draw this animal? I got about like 9. I have like what, over 900,000 animals I can draw, that's like, if you don't want to count bugs,
And I felt bad because somebody was like, hey, will you do a video on this species? And I was like, oh, I did that video like 2 years ago. It was one of my first videos. And like, yeah, but that kind of sucked. Like, can you do another video on it? And I'm like, it would be the exact same information, just with, you know, I have a better camera now and I've developed my skill, but it'd be the same information. Like, I'm sorry.
It's like, man, you make it, you know? Like,
yeah. I was like, I still have like 900 more species to cover. I can't be going back and doubling up yet.
You know, the demand, it's amazing how, and this goes for, I would say, any artist in any realm, whether you're a musician, a painter, someone that draws, a writer, a videographer, you know, it's funny how people that aren't in the art world and they don't even realize it, but the demand is so, I guess not demand, but it would be more of like the standards are so high. And even like, you know, you watch a movie and it doesn't have the best CGI, so it doesn't have the Avatar CGI or whatever, and people are like, oh, that CGI sucks. And I'm like, do you have any idea like how hard even to get that CGI would have been to make? Like, show a little respect, you know?
No. Yeah.
You know, like what? Okay, you go do it there, bub. You know, if it's so bad to you, you know?
Yeah. And I think sometimes YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all those, it's a little worse because technically that content's free. Like nobody's paying for it, but yet there still can be this like demand of high quality. And it's like, look, like you're not paying $20 to watch this video. Like I'm doing the best I can.
Like why can't you show this, or why can't you know, like draw it like that? I get that all the time, you know, or I'll get people that are like, you know, why don't you draw it more realistic? I'm like, because I don't want to draw it more realistic, you know? Like, you know, like,
and this weird thing has been happening recently where like people that aren't into tarantulas or inverts or anything like that, like mainly the like people that I know, right? Like maybe not even personally, but like I know somebody that knows this person and they somehow watch one of my videos and they contact me like, hey, will you shoot a commercial for my business? Or will you come and film our wedding or something like that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, this is what I would charge. And they're like, oh no, I don't want to pay for it. And it's like, this is a lot of work. Like, I'm not just like, it'd be good exposure for you. And I'm like, filming your wedding is not going to give me any exposure.
Like, no.
Anybody at that wedding, they're not. Yeah. You know, unless it's like a reptile convention that you're having the wedding at. Like,
yeah, exactly. Nope. Yeah. You know, the same
but
thing
thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's very kind of you. Well, you know, that same thing goes with drawing. You know, like I get people that request stuff all the time. Hey, will you draw this for me? And I'm like, yeah. And I show them my rates, you know, and my rates are actually not very, very high. I'm actually do my best to keep everything reasonable. I keep my stickers at a low price and my shirts as low as I can. Cause I had, you know, these shirts are really good quality and they don't cost me like $2 to make. They cost me like $15 to make sometimes, you know, so I have to sell them for 25. And, but I'll have people be like, hey, will you do a commission? And I'm like, oh, sure. And I get my price like, oh, that is way too expensive. You know, like I was just hoping to like buy like a sticker of it from you. And I'm like, well, if you want a sticker of it, let's see, time drawing it and time having to design it, time laying it out. And then I have to do a minimum order of 50 stickers. So this sticker will cost you, you know, $287. You know, it's like,
yeah,
it's just, people don't think of it in that term though. They just want the final product and they just like, oh, I would just spend $3 on that sticker. I'm like, well, and especially because this is why I don't draw domestic dogs. Well, I haven't done it yet. I'm not saying that I won't, but man, I feel like once I do draw one dog, that's it. Like that's all people are going to request of me is dogs. And then I'm going to get into the dog business. You know, I want to draw wildlife.
Very true. Man, I wouldn't have gotten into that business here, and I'll be honest. Like merch, like selling T-shirts is one of the most frustrating aspects of what I'm doing. And I like have I design it on my phone usually. I'm like, oh, that's a cool design, and I use like a print on demand company because I was I was using a local printer because I'm all about supporting local businesses, and I'm like, I'm gonna work with these guys over here. And the first few shirts I ever made, that's how I was like, you know, but they had a minimum. I mean, they're a business as well. So they're like, well, you got to get at least 100. Like we can't even take the time to set up the screen printing unless you get 100 of them. And then you got to, so it's like I had to buy them, but then you have to buy them like extra small, you know, and then it's like, okay, maybe I need like 500 shirts. And
then you sit
And
on
then
them
yeah,
forever.
it takes forever to sell them. It takes forever to sell them. You got to store them somewhere. Then you got to pack them yourself and deal with the inventory. And I kept screwing it up because I'm a screw up. So I was like, someone order an extra large, and I'd send them a medium, and I'm like, damn.
I've done it
switched
twice.
up.
I've done it twice, and I felt so bad. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know. Like,
yeah, me too.
you gotta try to
just keep that shirt, give it to a friend. I'll send you another one.
Yep, that's
don't even bother sending it back.
Yeah, they're always like, you should get that one back. I'm like, no, that was my bad.
Yeah, and it's it just got too much for me. I was like, and it's like it costs, like, people go to Walmart and they get a shirt for $5, so they're thinking like that. If they're making a profit off that, that means that you're getting your shirts for like $2, and it's like it costs me like $4 just to get the screen printing on a shirt that I also have to pay for. Like,
right,
it can be expensive making shirts, especially if you like don't go with the cheapest possible shirt. You know, if you try to get something that's tri-blend or something like that. Like it ended up costing me $20. So me charging you $25, that's not even the recommended profit margin that the business is suggesting.
Yeah, you know? Most businesses would suggest me to sell them for 40, and I do them for 25. So
yeah, yeah. But you know, I guess that's just the nature of the beast. Everybody's got to make their money. But when it comes to conservation, like, how do you determine what organizations are? Because my wife works for a nonprofit. I've dealt with a lot of nonprofits before, and there's some shady nonprofits. Like, you know, the 80% of the money they come in actually goes to paying for parties and salaries and stuff like that, and very little goes to the actual mission. So how do you determine who you donate this money to?
Well, you know, I was fortunate, like I said, to work at the zoo. I'm actually a part of the Portland chapter of AZAC. I'm actually one of their committee members. And AZAC is the American Association of Zookeepers. And, of course, they have connections everywhere within different aspects of conservation. And it's all about research. You know, I hopefully in time, if I can get big enough and whatnot, and if this succeeds well, that I will have companies contacting me, and then I could research them and make sure that they are legit and whatnot. But I already have a very deep connection within the conservation community, and a very deep connection within a lot of different organizations and scientists already. So I have a lot of different things planned out that I want to take care of and promote. And you know, there's not a conservation effort for any, like, it's not always just one specific animal. It's kind of like an umbrella term. So, you know, I'm not, you know, this shirt will go to the Xerxes Society, but it, you know, it helps arthropods. It doesn't necessarily help a Goliath beetle right then and there. Some shirts do, though. My tiger shirt goes back to Panthera, but it does. It really comes down to, you know, doing your research on it and taking that time, which I do. I spend hours, you know, looking on stuff, you know, making sure this is the organization I want to work with. Because there are some, you know, you have World Wildlife Fund, and they're doing awesome, you know, and like they're dominating in the conservation realm, and good for them, you know, but they don't really need my help. And I want to find things that do need my help. And so it's also looking for that, and then, you know, contacting them, seeing what they do, watching their videos. And one thing I've noticed in the conservation field, to kind of notice like whether it's a scam or not, is when you look at videos or things that they are doing and they never show anything that's active, like if you're looking there and all they're showing is like, let's do a Borneo, let's do the orangutan, for instance. There was a company that got busted. I don't even remember the name of them, but they would show videos of, like, you know, the forest being cut down, palm oil going up, and they would show these orangutans, and it's really sad and really gripping, but they never showed the company doing any actual solutions. They're just saying, donate money and we'll help this and blah, blah, blah. Who? Help who? Mm-hmm. Like, what, you're going to go hang out with the orangutan and build them a home? Like, what, you know, like, and they're not doing anything. And so when you find a conservation effort and you're liking their cause, always double check. Always see, like, 4Ocean is a great example. 4Ocean, do you know who 4Ocean is? You heard those guys? They have the bracelets. So
yeah, I have heard of them.
They help clean the oceans, but they actually do it. You know, they're not just like, here, we'll just give money and blah, blah, blah. They're actually out there in ship vessels, cleaning the ocean, doing what they can, raising money for their cause. And they are showing that solution. And I love that. You know, that's, you know, that something's happening, you know, and while I'm not directly, well, we would like to eventually actually go to these organizations and actually help them. That would be the whole idea, was to make videos with them and showing what they're doing and showing that they're actually doing this. That is the ultimate goal. In fact, next year, a group of us, including Peter, are going to India, as long as we can go there. But we're actually going to be going to India and meeting up with a friend of mine out there. And we're going to go see the 6 national parks that is out in the Nilgiri biosphere, which is in the Western Ghats region of India. And we're going to get to see elephants and tigers in the wild and really, really get an aspect. But we are going to get to meet these scientists that are trying to make a difference out there. And we're going to, interview them. They're going to show us what they do. We're going to get to see, how they tag animals and how they, track these animals. We're going to go down the Ganges for a little while and see gharials in the wild, which I'm so freaking excited about. Like, come on, like the most dinosaur of all dinosaurs that is living today,
Yeah.
And so, that's the goal of this company, is like, instead of, when I first started out, I was just a brand. I was just like, I had shirts, I was just donating money, but I was like, I want so much more. Like, I want to really make a difference. I don't just want to give money. I want to educate the world and show hey, conservation is exciting. It's fun. It's worth it. It's important. And it's amazing. And there's so much of it going on, but no one ever really knows about it, and that's honestly, I think it's because a lot of the tactics within conservation shows a lot of the negativity that's going on, and people kind of want to push that away. They kind of I don't want to deal with that. You see something really graphic on TV. What are you going to do? Right? You're going to change it. Unless you're into that
that's
stuff.
sad.
That's a different story, but
be entertained.
Right. And that's really what it is. So being able to show the conservation, and that's what I felt, Steve Irwin, his show, what he did really well was he was able to capture an audience, and he was able to take conservation and take wildlife and just be that, daring guy that goes out there wrestling the croc, and some people may disagree with it. Some people are like, he shouldn't be messing with the wildlife like that. But in my opinion, that what he did so much more for conservation and impacting people by being himself and being around those animals. And I mean, it inspired generations, and he still does. The whole family still does. And there's just not enough of that anymore. That's in the public eye, in my opinion, so that's what I want to do.
I would definitely agree. It's very cool. That's something that, I've been doing this. This would technically be the 11th episode of the podcast. So it hasn't been going for very long. And I really wanted to just kind of be entertaining conversations between people in the hobbies, in periphery and stuff. But it seems inevitably in every podcast, we stumble across some kind of controversial topic.
Right.
And even though if I try to avoid it, it's just in the hobbies that we're in, there's inevitable going to be, there's inevitable controversy. Right. And when we're talking about conservation, I don't think we can, I know people are listening right now and, these thoughts are running through their minds. So we should talk about it. There's at least, I'm speaking mainly from the tarantula and scorpion perspective, when it comes to others like reptiles and stuff, I don't have the knowledge or experience, but I know that there's a huge disconnect and almost animosity in between researchers and scientists, biologists, stuff like that, and people that are keeping and breeding tarantulas for the pet trade or,
right.
for the hobby aspect. And I have reached out to some people because I thought it would be good to kind of, that was part of the mission statement, or is part of the mission statement for the Tarantula Collective, on my the 5-year plan is to work with conservation. One, it's kind of difficult to find reliable, reputable people that I trust, that are doing some kind of tarantula conservation out in the wild. But the people that I have been put into contact with are very hesitant getting involved with anybody that is associated with the pet trade, So how do you bridge that gap? It's frustrating to me because I'm I love these animals just like you love them. I keep them in my basement and care for them and make videos about them, try to educate people about them and grow that love. And I think that I am doing them a service. I'm helping raise awareness and give these animals, these creatures the best possible life that they could by sharing my experience. But you see me as part of the problem. I am advertising that people should keep these things. And it becomes this huge argument. Like it's a constant argument. Like especially in like my Facebook group, I hear it all the time. Sometimes I'll make a post on Instagram. People are arguing in the comments about like if, for instance, like a species that's native to the rainforest of Brazil. The people are like, well, you know, Brazil's burning down their rainforests and they're destroying their habitat. So the only way these species will survive is if we have them in the hobby and we're keeping them and breeding them and selling them and
which has been proven them
out.
Which has been proven.
Yeah. But then you also have people on the conservation side or research saying like, well, the pet trade is playing a huge part in the eradication of the species because people are, you know, capturing them and selling them illegally. You know, they're smuggling them out of whatever country and, which happens as well. Like I know that is an issue too, but because a small percentage of the people in the pet trade are bad actors that are illegally capturing and smuggling these species out of the country to sell them in other countries. Like it happens in Europe all the time. It seems like anytime a species is discovered, it's like within a month it's for sale in Europe. It's like, how did that happen? You know? So how do we mend that fence? How do we bridge that gap? Like, how do you do it? How do you get in touch with these people? And
you know, when I first started, it was very difficult because being somebody that was really a nobody, not a big name in conservation at all. And I would go out and I would contact, you know, different agencies or different nonprofits and hear no response from them. And I actually, you know, cause I really, when I started, I was like, it'd be cool if they would help support it as well. Cause the idea was if we sell these shirts, you know, and if they help support it, it would also just make them money. But I realized that, you know, there's so much scam out there that a lot of these people are hesitant because they don't know me. And I was fortunate to sort of have a connection by where I worked at the time and by who I know. And I was able to get within contact, but really it was just time for me because I decided, you know what, if this company's not going to contact me back, whatever, that's not what it's about. I don't care if they promote me or not. I want to just raise money to help this wildlife. So I just started doing it and I put it on my media, how much I raised. And if anyone wants to question that, if anyone wants to be like, oh, you didn't actually raise that much money, they can contact Wildlife Warriors and they'll be like, yeah, he sent that money, you know? And so, and then it's funny because when I did send the money, then they did contact me after the fact. They're like, oh, hey, you know, thanks for the $1,500. You know, that's awesome. Yeah, we didn't even know you were doing that. I'm like, well, I emailed you 6 times, but you know, it's fine. You know,
money talks, man.
Right?
Money talks.
And it really is. It's action. I think that you're in a little bit of a different field because I think that there is sort of a truth to both sides. You know, like for instance, you know, those cave roaches that Peter has, they are no longer in the wild. He was one of the main reasons why these animals are still alive today. And if it wasn't for people like him or people in the pet trade to take care of these things, they would be extinct. And you know what? When it comes to something like an arthropod or a cockroach, nobody would even bat an eye about it. Nobody would even notice if they were gone. And that's sad because these animals are just as imperative. I mean, look, if you want to look at the demographic of what's more important to the environment, cockroaches are our cleaners. They clean our environment. You know, they are imperative, you know, and they do the jobs we don't want to do. And so it's kind of like we don't have to be the decomposer as a human, you know, they do that. And so I think in a way it's kind of more or less I guess, showing them like, hey, like I'm not just some guy that catches these things in the wild. This is what I do. Like, you know, I'm looking behind there being like, obviously you love what you do. And it would be an aspect of like, I want to make a difference and I breed these things. I take care of these things. I want to save them in the wild. What can I do to help? And it's kind of like, if they can't see that, then I guess that's sort of on them. But I feel like they sort of, because I don't know, man, I always had this saying that within conservation, there is no competition. You can't have competition within conservation. You're all on the same side, you know? And so if you're at heart truly wanting to work within conservation, of course, there are a lot of people that try to get into conservation for money, which is very the incorrect way to go. But, you know, these people that are studying these tarantulas, they probably don't get a whole lot of funding. I mean, I can't, you know, it's not like they're helping some polar bear that gets all the funding or something. And so they need all the help they can get. And I understand that they might be hesitant because they might have views on certain things, but at the same time, it's kind of like, look, I don't always agree with everything you're doing as well, but we can work together and make this work. And that's, I think the problem is that there's so much disconnect within the conservation field and just people in general, I guess. Like anytime I ask someone like about conservation, they think it's like about saving whales and it's about saving sea turtles, and that they're not educated to do that. And that's not what it's about. Conservation is about realizing that there is an entire ecosystem and world around you beside yourself, and that you can legitimately make a change just by changing your own life. You can be a conservationist by like thinking, you know, for instance, just like when you go camping, you know, take less plastic with you. Try to do everything you can to bring as little plastic as you can. And if you do bring plastic out there, do everything you can to recycle it. It's that easy. It's not even a hard thing. You know, a lot of people are changing how they, you know, for body wash, you know, instead of using all these plastic bottles, you can buy bars of soap. It's little things that are not even going to inconvenience you in any way, that you can make a difference. And if you want to take the next step, you know, you do your research. You go, okay, I love tarantulas, for instance. I want to do something in that. And so who do I contact? And then with tarantulas, I'm sure you got to go like deep on the internet, because it's not going to be popping up at you right away, you know?
Yeah.
But with polar bears, it's like, okay, I want to, you know, help polar bears, and you get a whole list of all these organizations that help them. And then your next step is to really research those organizations, of course. But generally, when it's a bigger animal like that, the first thing that pops up isn't going to be a scam. It's already pretty popular. People are paying millions of dollars to it, and that kind of situation. But in the arthropod world, it's a little different, you know?
Yeah, it can be a little dicey. And
yeah.
I actually, I gotta be careful what I say here, because I'm not supposed to talk about it at all. But there was an actual zoo reached out to me, and not even like, they didn't even know about the YouTube channel. It was like they knew somebody that knew me and my channel, and they were looking for something. And this person was like, "Hey, you should reach out to this guy. I know him. He's kind of in the same avenue that you're looking for or something." And they watched some of my stuff unbeknownst to me and reached out to me. And they're like, "Hey, we're working on this project. We could really use your help. Can you help us?" And I was like, "Oh, I'd love to. Like, this is what I've been looking for. It's in tarantula conservation.
Awesome.
You're a reputable scientific society. You know, you at this zoo, which will remain nameless." And I was like, "This would be awesome. I will do everything I can to help you. And I'd also like to raise awareness about this. So can I like record this and come to you and you know, shoot a video?" And they're like, "No. In fact, we need you to sign an NDA that says you're not going to tell anybody about this, because we essentially, they're like, we don't want to be associated with you publicly because of the controversy between research and pet trade." That, and I think that what they're doing is being funded by grants that they don't want it to be public knowledge, because then they'll have competition for that grant money or something. So at least that's how it was explained.
Coming from working at a zoo, yeah, I get it.
And I was like really excited, because it's a very cool project.
Yeah.
And I know that people in the hobby would be like, "Oh, this is awesome," and would rally behind it. But they're like, not yet. Not until we can prove that this is successful and viable.
Yeah.
Then you can at that point. And I was like, okay. And it was actually, it was like, I've been staying in contact with them. They said that what they were working on was successful. And we were going to start making arrangements so I could fly out there and like kind of do a video on it. And then COVID hit, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll have to wait and see." It's like, oh yeah. Man. Like, but you gotta wait. Yeah. So I haven't been cleared to talk about it, but it's really exciting research. It's very cool. It's straight up conservation, but it's like, that's just like, it gave me a little taste of it, and I was like, I want to do more. And the more that I've looked and researched, it's and I'm a very skeptical, untrusting person, I guess, when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So I see like some group that's raising money to, you know, support some researcher in India or something like that. And if there's not like a proven track record and receipts, and then it's like, you could be totally legit. I'm not saying you're not legit. I'm just saying that when I see some evidence, then I'll stand behind you. But I'm not like staking my reputation and name to support something that's going to take everybody's money and disappear. at some point, you know, like that's not something I want to do.
And the thing is it happens. It happens. Like it, and that's what's hard for my business is that, you know, people don't know me. And so they're just like, what is this? Oh yeah, sure. You know, 30%. Yeah, right. Like, cause most of the time it's like, you know, 0.1% or something like that, you know, or 5% or something like that. And so we, you know, and that's the thing. The aspect was, the idea is like, I would have a social media presence to get that known. And so that's what I'm working on now within TikTok and on Instagram, is really showing like who I am and letting people get to know me, because like, this is what I want to do. Like, I love animals and I love wildlife, you know, and they need to be protected. It's so important, you know, every animal, not just the big ones, but the little guys like tarantulas and even littler guys, like, you know, like flies. I mean, you know, all kinds of stuff. But, you know, with zoos, that's a topic of controversy right there. You know, zoos, me working at a zoo, I support many zoos, because a lot of people don't realize that so much conservation that is active today, that is working, that is legitimately like making a difference, is thanks to zoos. Thanks to our zoo here for condor research and the checkered spot butterfly, and not just popular animals, not animals like elephants, which is many zoos are trying to do with, you know, and or rhinos and all kinds of stuff, but these little bugs, western pond turtles, and these animals that are dying off without us even realizing it, because nobody's talking about them. And zoos, many zoos, I'm not saying that all zoos are good, but reputable zoos, AZA accredited zoos, they have these programs that are like under the radar, that like nobody knows about, that they're doing hardly, and they're, you know, helping so much within conservation, and they're important. And it's one of those, for me, you know, yeah, do I want to see an animal in a cage? Bigger animals, especially like chimps and whatnot? That's not necessarily, but the education and the inspiration that people may get from that is very important. And what we learn from having these animals is very important. And so, you know, learning in animal structure, like such as elephants, you know, these animals are very complicated creatures. They're smart. They are very large, and they are causing havoc in India, in certain parts of India, especially in Sri Lanka, where there's a lot of, farming and commercial agriculture that's happening now, you know, that's kind of more recent. And they're putting all these lands in these elephant migration areas, and an elephant, like, what's a fence going to do? It's like, you know, he's going to knock it over and go get his food because he's hungry, you know? They don't care. They're giant steamrollers, you know? But how do we get that connection to where people that are farming can coexist with these animals? How do we learn about these animals besides structures like zoos or preserves or other places that are actually monitoring and researching these animals? And where does that, you know, and it's easy to say, oh, well, you know, you could just go out into the field and do this in the wild, which, yes, that happens, but who funds that? Where does that funding come from? Zoos and different private preserves. A lot of that funding happens through those. So, I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's, and other people can go against that. And, you know, it's kind of that agree to disagree kind of thing, I guess. But I can tell you right now that, you know, from who I've worked with and the people I've worked with and who are considered family to me, like, these people are doing everything they can to help these animals and make a difference. And I 100% support it. So
that's good. Yeah, there's a disconnect. Like, I can spend hours filming tarantula the best I can to show off all the aspects of it, but still the people seeing it is just two-dimensional on a screen.
It is.
You know, there's something different about seeing it in person. You know, whether it's an orangutan or a giraffe or something. Like, I can watch all the nature documentaries that I want, but actually being able to like see it in 3D and smell it and hear it, like, it brings a whole realization, or I don't know, it's a much more real thing to you than just seeing a picture and hearing about, you know, the struggle they're having in their native habitat. Like, it helps on a level that is maybe not even, I mean, it could be subconscious, I don't know, but it seems to bring another level of concern and empathy and care, you know,
especially in children.
Plight. Very true. Yeah.
I mean, you can only go so far with a book about elephants until you see one, you know, and then you see one and you're like, imagine being 3 and here's an elephant, you know, it's just like, You know, like, I mean, man, I remember when I saw my first tarantula, by the way, if you want to talk about tarantulas, I had a Chilean rose hair, and my dad got it for I was probably like 8 or something like that. I had this tarantula forever. My gosh, that thing lived for such a long time. Her name was Itzy.
I'll do that.
Yeah, she was big. But, actually, my mother and my mother almost divorced my dad over this. Like, she was so mad that my dad just went and got a tarantula. You know, little did she realize that was going to spark like way more bugs. You know, like I had like hundreds of animals. Like just as soon as I was old enough to where I was like taking care of on my own, it was like, okay, I want every bug possible. You know, and so she probably wished she could have stopped that even before. But you know. But I don't know, you know, seeing it firsthand, you're right. Seeing it firsthand brings out many more emotions than just seeing it on a video or, you know, it's kind of like when you see like travel videos, like, oh, I'd like to go there sometime. And that's really the feeling you're left with. Every time you see a video about like traveling to like the Bahamas or traveling to Galapagos, you're like, oh man, I want to visit there, because like the real impact would be if you were actually there. Right. I mean, technically, because what are you going to remember more, the video you watched or actually being there? You know, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my kid is, he's about to turn 12, and, you know, I make these videos, and sometimes I will guilt him into watching them. Like, I mean, almost pin him down and be like, you got to watch this thing I made
now.
And, you know, he's kind of boring. Like you know, it's not exciting to him, you know, probably because he's familiar with it, but you know, it'll be a whole video that I'm very proud of this one tarantula. And he's just kind of like, yeah, that was a great video. I'll take that same tarantula out the next day and have it on the table, and he's like mesmerized by it. It's like, what? I made a video about it. You could care less, but now it's here in front of you. It's the most amazing thing you've seen.
Right.
You know, so it's there is, and one thing I like about, like we were talking before the podcast, like I live in a small town in West Virginia. It's not, you know, like it's not even like in the top 3 of the like largest cities in this state, but we are the only city that has a zoo. There was a very rich family a long time ago, and when they died, I don't even remember what they did. I think they had like an apple orchard or something like that, but they donated all that land to the city. And so they made this huge park called Ogleby Park. And it's like, I think it's a state park, maybe national. I don't think it's national, but anyways, it's in Ogleby Park. They have what they call the Good Zoo, the Ogleby Zoo, and it's small. But I mean, for a town like, I mean, they've got red pandas, and sometimes they have giraffes, and you know, it's not just farm animals that you can come and pet. Like they have some very cool reptiles, and you know, it takes you half a day to walk through the whole thing. I mean, it's not like going to the Columbus Zoo or Cincinnati Zoo, but for kids, it's pretty amazing. And their big thing is conservation. There's a local university that everybody in the zoological or biology department, they work there as part of their internship or, you know, class credits. And, you know, but one thing that drives me crazy, it's like they have all these amazing animals and all this amazing information. And then you get to their little reptile room. Everything is very cool there until you get to the tarantula section. And then it's just like, you guys totally missed the boat here. Like maybe I just don't know enough about these other species, but
yeah,
that is that's a terrestrial tarantula. You have, you know, that likes to burrow. You know, it needs at least 5 or 6 inches of substrate. You got it on like half an inch of wood
and you're
chips.
never going to see it. Like,
you know, it's like, why are you doing this to this poor spider? And then you tell them, and they're just like, yeah, okay. It's kind of like talking to a pet shop. They're like, okay, crazy person.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
It's like, I'm a biology student, and you're just some random guy with a beard. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. So it's like, I don't want to be that guy, but you know, it can be frustrating. And I see it, like, I mean, I go to a lot of zoos, and I see people that post videos from zoos, and that's like the biggest complaint usually. And then again, I'm biased because I focus mainly on tarantulas and scorpions, but it's like the habitat isn't really that beneficial for that species. Like,
yeah.
And I know part of it is because it is a zoo. They want it to be on display and not hidden, you know, but it's also kind of like, it's a tarantula. Like you can't expect it to be out during the day, you know, it's not its thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Getting the insect zoos at zoos it's hilarious. I love visiting them because it's always like, okay, well, they could have done that. Or it's also like the tiniest room in the entire zoo, you know, like it's like, gosh, you know what? The bathroom was bigger than this place, you know? But The zoo with the Oregon Zoo, we actually just created this awesome like education center, and it has this big thing where you walk through with all the bugs. And but still, you know, I feel like with insects, you have to have someone there talking about bugs, because like people don't know about these animals, so they just look at it and go, "Oh, that's cool," and they kind of keep going. And it's like, that's cool, yeah, that's a horrid king assassin bug, like. This thing's amazing, you know, like, are you kidding? Like, yeah. This thing is like the ultimate hunter, and it's venomous. Like, come on. And they're like, oh, that's a nice beetle. It's not a beetle, you know?
Yeah.
Know? And
passion is contagious. You start sharing your passion with somebody else, and they could not give a crap about it. And then all of a sudden that it like ignites that kind of fire. And they're like, wow, I do care about this. This is awesome.
And that's, again, when it, exposure. What is the best therapy for any kind of phobia? Exposure. And that's like
100%.
It's exposure. And so that's what a lot of these places provide. And it's just like I always say, you know, when I used to do some therapy stuff for a lot of people would be, of course, really terrified of bugs, and like, will you help me kind of get over this? And so I kind of explain it as this. I go, the first time, it's just like you go to a lake, right? And there's this big rock cliff and everyone's jumping off of it, but you're terrified because you've never done it before. And like, you finally do it, right? After just forever of being horrified of it and all this peer pressure and everything and being called a wimp or whatever, you know, you finally do it and you jump off this cliff. And then the second time isn't as bad. Now, some people, they dive right in and then they just do it over and over. And then some people, it takes like 5 or 6 times, but still eventually you're going to just do it. And it's going to be fun. And it's the same thing to me as bugs. You know, you watch them, you see them, you're like, and then you're like, actually, that's kind of cool. And then you get shown another bug, you're like, that's pretty cool. And then before you know it, you're holding one. And then before you know it, you're like out in nature and you're like, that is an awesome bug. And I have people that they'll text me all the time, like random bugs. And half the time it's some like ladybug larva, but they think it's like the biggest alien ever, you know? And I just go along and I'm like, heck yeah, you know? Yeah, dude, send me these photos. But what's exciting about it is that they didn't have that aspect before and now they do. And in my opinion, I think that's a much better way to live. I wouldn't want to live being afraid of like what's out there. I mean, yeah, when I'm swimming in the water and there's a shark around, it's not comfortable. That's because I'm not a fish, you know, like I don't want to be swimming, you know, necessarily right next to this shark, but it's awesome to see. Granted, I don't know why I'm not afraid of any animal, but sharks, they can scare the crap out of me. So I don't know what it is. They're a swimming mouth with teeth, and it's just, I don't want to be right next to one, you know, not a big one, a little one's fine, you know, just not a tiger shark or something bigger.
Like, I mean, they're highly evolved to eat stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's pretty terrifying,
you know? I mean, I love them. Like, they're awesome. And I love seeing them. And like, I'm not like terrified to the point where I can't like see one, but I don't like, I was in San Diego and they convinced me to go and to one of the cages where these sharks were swimming around. And so I did it. I finally agreed to do it. I did it, man. And I was in there, but they were talking about this one shark in particular that would swim around sometimes. And it would like, he would like put his nose like in between the bars, like this one section of the cage. And he would always do it behind you. So you're always kind of just like, like watching him. And he would just stay there. And they were like, whatever you do, just like let him do his thing. Don't like boop him on the nose. They don't like that. But like, I couldn't have this massive shark behind me and it would just not leave. So I would kind of like nudge it away, you know, and like, okay, go away. And then I swear to God, he would like swim around and he would like, I would forget about him for a brief moment. And then he'd come back and go to that right exact same spot. And I'm like, dude, you know, like, and I'd push him away. Well, I did that like 2 times. And on the 3rd time, as I pushed him away, he came around and he just went wham and just like nailed the cage. And I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I need to get out. Like, all right, I'm over this crap. Like, you know, like,
yeah.
I was like, no, thanks. Like, you know,
that's wild. I've never gotten to a cage. That's a little beyond my bravery at the moment. But I lived in Florida for about 8 years and at Daytona Beach. And I had just moved down there, you know, guy from, at that point I had lived in I had visited Alaska lived there for like 5 or 6 months. And I went to college out in South Dakota and then grew up in West Virginia. So it's like, those are pretty rural states, 3 very rural states. So I moved down to Daytona Beach and I don't think at that point, I had really ever even been to the beach. Like my family didn't go to the beach on vacation. We're all a bunch of pasty hillbillies. And we're like, it's just sunburn and sand fleas at the beach. Like,
oh man,
let's go to Maine or somewhere like that.
Right. Right.
So I moved down there with this girl I was dating. We had a dog, and Daytona Beach was always just packed and crowded. And they told us, well, there's this beach that locals go to about 20 minutes south called New Smyrna Beach, and it's beautiful. It's where a lot of the local surfers go, and it's great. So we're like, all right, we'll go down there. We started going down there like every weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're at New Smyrna Beach with our dog running around, oblivious. And somebody finally came up and we're like, why are you letting your dog run around on the beach? And we're like, well, they're allowed. It's a dog beach. And they're like, yeah, but you notice nobody else has their dogs here? And we're like, oh, we just thought it was kind of a deserted beach. And they're like, right now, this is the shark bite capital of the world. Like there's all kinds of sharks out there and they love eating dogs. And we're like, what? Why are there no signs? It was wild. So we were like, yeah, we're not going back there. At least not getting in the water. But yeah, you would hear about it, and they weren't like great whites or anything. I think they were just tiger sharks, but they were taking chunks out of guys' legs when they were surfing and stuff and attacking dogs. It was
Florida is a different world, man. I tell you, the videos I see of Florida, like I just watched the video the other day. This guy just like. They were like swimming somewhere, and this alligator, I mean, it wasn't like huge, but it was probably like 3.5 feet or so, and it was swimming right next to him. And the guy, he's like this high, and he just grabs the damn thing and just chucks it like it was like nothing. I'm like, what? Like that was an alligator, Like
it took some time getting used to that. Like the first time I saw an alligator on the side of the road, I was like, where am I?
Now it's gosh.
Like, get out of the way. I'm trying to drive here.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around alligators.
It's a freaking dinosaur.
Oh, they're so cool. That's why I'm excited about gharials, man. I can't wait to see one of those in the wild. Oh gosh, it's killing me.
When I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but when I lived down there for a long time, like I had a couple different jobs because I don't know. I change jobs every 4 years. It seems it's like, all right, this is boring. Let's do something else. Which is terrible for retirement. Not really
fun for the time
that
being.
401k. Yeah. So for a good chunk of my time down there, I worked for the gas company, like reading meters. Like it was a great job for a pale guy from West Virginia to run around Florida, walking in between houses, reading meters in the sun.
Oh, look, a walking
just
tomato.
Covered in sweat. Oh man, it was. And I looked so ridiculous. I would sometimes have to carry an umbrella, because the sun was beating down on me so bad.
Oh, man.
It was humiliating. But I would run into alligators all the time, especially like when I was reading on golf courses and stuff. People lived on golf courses. There were just signs up everywhere, like, stay away from the water. There's alligators. And I'm like, oh. And snakes. I had never seen so many snakes.
Oh, yeah.
But it really, like, I was into tarantulas. I had a tarantula, like that was it. I was not too keen on reptiles either, but like you were talking about earlier, that's why I got into tarantulas is because I was very afraid of spiders, and I really thought it kind of made me look I was trying to be a tough guy, and that was really hindering that. So I was like, I got to get over this fear. Started by just getting one tarantula that I had for a long time. And it was that exposure.
And now look behind you.
Yeah. It taught me, though, that 90% of my fear isn't actually self-preservation. It's just, I just don't know. Like, it's the fear of the unknown. I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how it behaves. And that terrifies me.
Right.
But when I learned that stuff, then it's like, oh, this thing is kind of like, especially tarantulas. Like, they are highly evolved. They've been around millions of years, and some of them are very venomous, but none of them are going to kill you. And they're very fast, but they're also, I don't want to say clumsy, but they're derpy. I don't know if that's
they so are. Oh my gosh.
Sometimes they're just ridiculous, and it's like they get terrified. You drop a cricket in, and they freaks them out. You put some water in there. It's like, yeah, this isn't that scary. Like. It's almost comical sometimes, that these things that people are terrified of and haunts their nightmares are really just a klutz with 8 legs.
My Goliath spider. My Goliath spider was so heavy she couldn't even climb her cage anymore, and it was so pathetic to see her because like people are like, she's this big spider and like, ooh, but like you see her in her cage and she's just like trying to climb the glass, and it's like the saddest thing ever. And I'm like, you're scared of that? But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's such funny to me, but
But it was that exposure to alligators and all different types of snakes. Because there were some venomous snakes that would really mess me up in Florida. So I had to do the research and determine like, okay, what type of snake is that? How do I determine like right on the spot if it's venomous or if it's just a rat snake? And so many rat snakes. But there was I think it was a black snake that I ran into the most. And especially during like when, I don't know if it's mating season for snakes, but like when they're laying eggs and guarding their eggs, the females would pile up leaves and sticks and stuff in their little nests so that if you were kind of encroaching on their territory, and they would start, shaking their tail and it would sound like a rattlesnake.
Mm-hmm.
So like I kept thinking I was running into rattlesnakes. I was like, I could hear it. I'm like going, because sometimes you have to go in between bushes, like in between the house and these bushes, which is where snakes love to hide. And I'd be like crawling back there, I'd hear a rattlesnake and I'd tear out of there. Like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. and then I'd have to, like, you could only skip like 1 month, like I'd be like, all right, there's something dangerous here, whether it's a dog or a snake or a black widow, or I'm not able to read the meter. So we'll skip it and just estimate it this month. But that means next month you have to get a reading because they don't want to overcharge I'm sure they do want to overcharge their customers. They don't want their customers to complain.
Yeah, right.
So I had to go in there and I heard it again. And then this time I was like, I'm going to be cool. I have my little snake stick with me. And then I realized that's just a king snake or something. Like that's a black snake. It's not an actual rattlesnake.
That's so funny. But that is a legitimate thing out there. I mean, Florida really has some amazing wildlife. I mean, among turtles and I'm assuming you probably saw the gold silk orb weavers all the time. The big, massive.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, those things are so beautiful, man. I love them. I guess
they really are.
Some people don't like them very much, but I had someone. I was hiking with faceplant into one of those one time, and the only way to get them to not freak out, because they did not like spiders, is I just grabbed the spider off their face and put it on mine and kept walking, and they were just like, "Oh, okay," You just had to confuse them, But you probably saw them all the time, I would assume.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that I didn't really anticipate were the scorpions. Like, for whatever reason, I was like, I just didn't know, uneducated on that. And I just assumed all scorpions were in the desert. They wouldn't be in Florida. And like my first or second week there, before we'd even gotten our own apartment, we were staying with some family, and they were like, we're not going to charge you rent, but you got to help us out with chores. And one of the chores that we had to help them out with was cleaning the cat box. So I'm like scooping the litter, and a scorpion crawls out of the litter. And I'm like, whoa, what?
Wait a minute.
What the hell is this? Where are we? And they're like, don't worry, it's not going to hurt you. And I'm like, that is a freaking scorpion, It terrified the crap out of me. Because the litter box was like right outside the room I was sleeping in. So I was like, the door to outside was in our room. So I was like, this thing walked through this room to get there. Like, there's no other way.
Right.
But now I am enamored. Like, I am, and it took me like recently. I think I got it wasn't recently. It was a few years ago. But I mean, I saw my first scorpion in real life in my early 20s, and it wasn't until my mid 30s that I was like, I finally had an appreciation for them and started learning about them and realized that these things aren't nearly as terrifying as. And I think a lot of it's movies. They get painted the same brush as spiders and snakes and these terribly scary things, and you come to learn that. They're more scared of us most of the time than we, you really got to do something to upset a scorpion or a spider to get them to bite you.
Unless it's a sun tiger, then that thing will just attack anything, I swear. Or a centipede. You can piss off a centipede by breathing on it,
That's very true. I have one centipede, and people are always like, you should do a video on it. And I'm like, that's a lot of work. Like, I had a hard enough time recording the unboxing of the centipede. Like, they're so unpredictable and they're so fast.
That's the thing.
Like
they're fast. They're big, venomous, and fast. That's not a great combination.
Yeah. And it's like their first instinct is when they're scared, it's like, well, I'm going to bite whatever it is. It'll leave me alone. I really got to hone my abilities as I don't want to say filmmaker, but as a person that uses a camera before because I'm still more focused on the camera than I am the specimen. So I work with specimens that are, or tarantulas or scorpions that I'm comfortable with interacting with. That thing I don't want to say like I understand it, but I can almost anticipate how the tarantula is going to react in different situations because I've been dealing with them so much. So I know that I can kind of read their body language maybe, or I don't know if it's instinctual or, you know, whatever it is. It's like, okay, I know this tarantula is starting to get really irritated. We're going to take a break for a while. You know?
Right.
With the centipedes, it's like, he's just always irritated. And I don't know if he's going left or right. Like, I don't know what he's doing. And it can be.
He's going both ways. Like
yeah. And usually the tarantulas try to get away from me. That centipede will come at me. And it's just like, whoa.
Peter loves to tell the story that we went down to Arizona. The first time we went 2 years ago. And we got to meet up with a guy named Wyatt who raises centipedes, and he has the Scolopendra heros, the big desert centipedes out there, you know. And I've never held one. Like I had a Vietnamese centipede one time, and I never touched that thing. So I finally ended up getting rid of it because there was no way I was attempting that. But and I'm still even learning with centipedes. I find them fascinating, but oh my gosh. And he was actually holding one, and he's just like holding it, like he's like rubbing it like it's like a baby. And I was just like, my brain could not comprehend it. And he was like, you want to hold it? And of course, like every time someone says it, I'm always like, oh yeah, sure. But then like, you can see on the video that Peter got of me, like he goes, it's the gulp heard from across the world. And like, I like let out this like big swallow, and he just like put it in my hand. And that was probably, I've never shook more in my life holding something. Like it was just like, oh my gosh, thing was like 7 inches long, you know. I
can imagine.
Oh man, it never bit me. Thank God.
That's like the next area that I want to move into eventually. I mean, I've got one. I've had it for about a year or so now, and I enjoy. I don't see it very much, but when I do, they're amazing and fascinating. But I'm still not over that like fear yet. You know, I got to get more comfortable dealing with it. And the issue I run into, and again, I have no degrees in biology or entomology or anything like that. So like I don't have a scientific background, and so sometimes I'm not the most keen on finding reliable resources. But you know, with tarantulas, the hobby and the science has grown a lot, especially in like the past 10 years. And it's pretty easy, with the exception of like newer species, but it's pretty easy to determine, you know, exactly what the genus and species of this tarantula is and where it comes from and all that information. Scorpions, it's a little more difficult, I've noticed, because there's not as much research. But I did ironically, I kept finding these great scientific papers on scorpions. Every time I was like researching one before, I'd purchase it, add it to the basement down here. And they all were coming from Marshall University, which I actually went to for a little bit. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, which is where Marshall University is. Completely unaware they had a whole department that was like the leading resource for scorpion like research. I was like, how did I not know this? Like, so now I'm like, using that, I'm like, I'm just gonna go visit my mom and be like, what's up, mom? I'm here to hang out. I'm gonna head over to the university for a minute. I'll be over at Marshall picking these people's brains. This is because it's really cool. So I'm looking forward to, you know. Then of course COVID hits, so it's like, well, my mom's like, you stay up there, don't come down here.
right.
So, but eventually that's my plan, because I know some people that work at the university. So I'm like, I'm sure that the people I know that work at Marshall somehow know these people in that department. They can kind of get me an in. So hopefully I'll be able to go down there and talk to them and pick their brains. But when it comes to centipedes, sometimes I have I bought the centipede at a reptile show, and it didn't have a scientific name or anything like that. It just said Vietnamese centipede. So I was like, I go online and I'm looking, there's a bunch of different species that fall under that. And then this is where like social media is a double-edged sword. It has its, you know, but sometimes if you can check your ego, it can be very beneficial, because I posted the picture with what I thought its scientific name was, and immediately was bombarded with comments of people like, no, that's not what that is. It's not even a Vietnamese centipede. That's an Arizona centipede. You can tell for these different aspects, like they may look similar, but so I was like, oh, wonderful. Like people that actually know this information are out there. But they're just, you know, they're not making YouTube videos or websites or whatever, you know, because that's a lot of work. You know, but that's why I want to kind of get into centipedes, because I know it seems to be a lack of readily accessible information there that, you know, would benefit people to have out.
Yeah, you need to contact Wyatt. I will get you his info. This guy knows his centipedes, and he raises them.
That would be awesome.
And yeah, he goes by, I think it's Bloom Spike on or maybe he changed it. I'll get you the info later after the show. But
Okay.
yeah, the guy's a genius at it. And I mean, just watching him handle these things that like I would never dream of holding that. Like I mean, and I'll hold almost anything. Like I really like I love animals, man. Like I've been around lions and like right there, you know, and I just don't even have that fear in me, you know. It's just whatever, but that one bug, like, you know, and it was, but after I held it, I was like, oh, I want one of these. You know, as soon as I held it, I was like, and I realized that like, this thing's really cool, you know? And of course, you know, in like he described it, you know, he said, just like other animals, like all animals sort of have different personalities. So, you know, it just depends on the one you get, you know, and I'm sure, you know, firsthand with tarantulas, like some tarantulas are pretty chill. They're pretty docile. Some, well, they want to eat you, you know? But
yeah, there's somebody left a comment recently that told me to stop using the word specimen because like those are your pets. You're not a scientist. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I use the word specimen because that, at least the definition I'm familiar with, means like it's kind of a representative of a group. You know, like that's
right.
I'm talking about my tarantula, but in a way that's a very broad generalization of the entire species.
Right.
So that's why I say my specimen is because like I that's something that I have seen so much that like I'll have like my rose hair tarantula, the Grammostola porteri is the friendliest, a very, very friendly tarantula. But I know there are a lot of people out there whose their specimen is very grumpy and angry. Right. Yeah. So it's like, I can talk in generalities about these species, but yeah, and it's not even the personality of their personality will change multiple times while you keep them. Like they'll be really cool and chill for a couple of years and then they'll molt. And for whatever reason, now they're a jerk and they're going to give you threat poses.
Right.
And then after a few more molts, they may go back to being a chill, laid back tarantula. So there's not like so many people, especially, you know, in these hobbies, they want cut and dry, definitive kind of like, this is exactly how you take care of this species across the board. And it's like, that's just doesn't apply. Like your tarantula could have a completely different personality, could have completely different needs where you live in the, like, I'm sure the husbandry for some species that you have up in Oregon, I would have to keep them slightly different here in West Virginia, or somebody in Arizona would have to be, because the humidity, ambient temperatures of our houses and elevation and all that stuff doesn't really seem that different to us. But I think for like small insects and arthropods, that can make a big difference.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's something I try to put out there. Like, I'm just telling you how I keep mine. You need to take this information and get some other resources and then apply all of that to what works in your situation, because I don't know what your situation is. I don't know the temperament of your species, you know?
And that goes for any animal. I mean, really. I mean, even dogs. I mean, you know, people like, oh, what's the best dog, you know? And I'm sure you get asked all the time, what's the best starter, you know, species to get into? And, you know, you could say rose hair or whatever, but really it's kind of like, that's a really hard question to ask, because it's like, well, I guess if you're looking at like what's the easiest to take care of, rather than something that's going to be like arboreal, that's always going to be at the top of the cage and you're going to have to try and deal with that, or you know, something that's going to require a lot of heat or something like that. But as far as personality, it's kind of like you get what you get, you know. I mean, you can't really. I mean, with the exception, I guess it works for all animals, with the exception of like a wolverine and a like Tasmanian devil. I'm sure they're just always mean, but like, but I don't know.
Very true.
So what got you into breeding tarantulas?
Actually, nothing. I don't really breed at all. I've attempted breeding a few times, and I've never gotten a successful egg sac. And it's not something that I spend a lot of time on, because I don't want to sell them like that. I would love to breed for the experience. But then it's like, what do I do with all these? Like, I've had that issue with scorpions, is that I've got scorpions that some of them are parthenogenic, so I don't have to do anything. They just produce babies because that's what they want. And others are in a communal. So it's like, I'm not trying to breed them, but that's just nature. And so all of a sudden it's like right now I've got about 100 baby scorpions in my little nursery. And I'm like, what am I going to do with, like, I already dumped 100 of them on Tanya at Fear Not. I was like, please take these and sell them.
It's simple,
you know, and
you sell them to Peter. You know?
I tried. He was like, I don't want those. And I'm like,
come on, man, Peter. How could
he was like, they were too hot. He said they were too hot for him.
Are they like the bark scorpion?
He didn't want that liability. Yeah. They're Florida bark scorpions, Arizona bark scorpions.
Yeah.
I just had some striped devil scorpions. And the issue is all the babies that I'm producing are like super common. Like people just go out and grab them and bring them. And when like somebody places an order, like I just go in my backyard and grab some and ship them off because they're a pest here. So it's
right.
Like trying to sell these to people in Florida, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. They're like, yeah, I'm paying people to get them out of my house. Why would I pay you to ship one to me? But I find them fascinating. There's no scorpions up here. Well, actually, we have one scorpion in West Virginia I discovered, but it doesn't have a tail. It's like a tailless scorpion or something. It was
is
weird.
It like amblypygy or I can't remember. I can't even say that word right.
No, it wasn't. It looks like a scorpion. I mean, it kind of almost looks like a little tiny vingaroon, but it's not a vingaroon. It's a scorpion without a stinger or something like that. It was weird. It was like technically it's a scorpion, but
it was
not.
Tiny?
It doesn't have any.
Was
it was
really?
very small. Yeah.
Oh, that's a pseudo scorpion.
Yeah.
Those are those.
That could be it.
Yeah, those are those little arachnids that like they like hitch rides on the back of giant beetle shells and stuff, and they eat mites and stuff. Kind of like have like a communal living with them. Those things I never see them. I saw Peter and I saw one like a couple months ago and that was like the first one I've seen in Oregon. Pretty much, I've been here 11 years.
Yeah. I had to look it up since we're talking about it. This is a scorpion known in the Appalachian states. Actually, looking at a picture of it, it looks like it does have a stinger. So I was remembering wrong. It is of course, it's really hard to pronounce. Oh, I can share my screen. I forget that we're. It's if I can figure out how to do that.
We get.
There it is.
You were talking about how you're like, oh yeah, scorpions are in deserts, and I definitely had that same thing. And when I moved here for the first time, and I came across an Erectus mordax. And I was like, there's a scorpion in Oregon? It was so weird.
Yeah. So this is it. I don't know if you can read that. Vajovis. I don't even know.
Wow, that word.
Yeah. But it is like Kentucky, West Virginia, North and South Carolina. Like that is it.
Wow.
But yeah, that's kind of I don't remember how I got on that, but it was interesting. And I've never seen him. And we spent a lot of times going through the woods. I find all kinds of spiders and bugs and stuff like that. But
definitely,
no
I think
scorpions.
Speaking of finding stuff like that, a lot of people that hike, especially here in Oregon, they're constantly, they'll tell me, oh, I didn't see as much wildlife as I thought I would see. They say that a lot, because when you hike in Oregon, everyone thinks they're going to like see elk. Like, oh, I'm going to see elk. I'm going to see mountain lions. Which, look. You don't necessarily want to see mountain lions in the wild. I mean, like, it's cool if they're far away, but generally they see you in the wild, and that's the problem, you know? And
right.
I have been hiking out here. I've seen bears in Central Oregon and in Southern Oregon, but I've never, like, they're always like, oh, there's bears all over the place near Portland and stuff. I've never seen one. In the 11 years I've been here, I've never seen a bear in, like, the Portland Estacada, like, vicinity. And I mean, I've seen elk and whatnot, but when you start looking at the arthropod aspect and you start looking around at like the leaves and rocks and logs, and you'll start realizing there is so much wildlife anywhere you go if you're looking for arthropods because they're way more numerous. And then you really start looking at them and you're like, wow, these things are really cool. Like the first time I ever watched a giant stump stabber ichneumon wasp like deposit its eggs in bark, that was the weirdest looking thing. I like literally, I was like, what is this thing doing? And it would take its big old ovipositor and it would shoot out that big long like thing inside, and then it would like just stab it into the stump, and it was like a saw technique. It was so cool looking, and it's just like, what? Like, of course, did I have a camera at the time? No. Like, that would have been like the gold money shot right there. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
And bugs like, no, I swear they know if you're trying to film them. There's like, they're doing like the greatest thing ever. And then like you pull out your camera, and then they're just gone. You're like, every time.
Oh yeah. I feel like it's kind of like what they talk about in quantum physics. Like the observation of it will affect the measurement. So like I'll see a tarantula doing something very cool, and as soon as I turn that camera on, then they stop doing it. They're like they're aware that they're being observed, and now it's different. Then
can't do this. It's just craziness.
Yeah,
and
it is weird.
That's what I always encourage people. I go, man, if you're like looking for wildlife in the wilderness, then you're not somewhere like in the Galapagos or the rainforest, something like that, where you're going to see monkeys and sloths and all kinds of stuff. Like look for bugs. You'll find wildlife if you look for bugs, and
Very
it's
true.
awesome. Like, I love going out to fields where there's just flowers everywhere. And initially you just see flowers, but then when you really start looking, you realize there's like 6 different types of butterfly out there. There's different wasps and bees and even beetles that are pollinating and all kinds of different stuff. And you're like, and then when you notice those things, it changes the entire landscape. Like you then, like, all of a sudden you just see like a whole world open in front of you. And people always describe that to me. Like, every time someone goes bug hunting with me, if they're not like really a bug collector, and they're always like so unsure, like, I don't want to, like, I'm going to make them catch bugs. Like, nope, you have to fit your quota, like, and I just go, just come along. And when I start showing them this, they're all just like, and then before you know it, they're like over there in some like flower, in some bush, and like, hey, come look at this one. Come look at this one. And it's like, haha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think for me growing, maybe it's the same for you in Oregon. In West Virginia, there's not a whole lot to do, but hike, like, or go out and enjoy nature. Like, that's why people live here, is because we've got beautiful mountains and beautiful scenery. And, you go whitewater rafting or camping. And that's kind of like my wife, well, up until COVID, that was like our thing is, every month or every few months, we get away for a weekend and we go somewhere. And essentially, like, we just like rent a cabin or something like that, and then go spend the days hiking. And it's beautiful because most of it we're doing in our own area, but we're seeing things that even in our small town, wildlife and bugs and snakes and stuff that we never would have had the opportunity to see if we
Right.
didn't actually get out there in nature. And and it's usually we'll hike all day and not see anything until we like just kind of settle down and just chill. And like, I mean, literally sometimes we'll just stop on a rock and we're like, are we just going to hang out here for an hour? And then it's like the woods come alive. Like, you become
Right.
more aware
Yeah.
of everything that's around you that you just have been not seeing. And all these species are highly evolved to stay hidden.
Right.
They're smart. They're like,
That's what they
this
do.
guy doesn't belong here. Let's hide from him. We don't know what it is. And we went to somewhere down southern West Virginia on the New River we were there 3 days. And I was like making a YouTube video about just the experience. I mean, obviously not about tarantulas, but just something related to tarantulas. But that was like the scene I was using to film this conversation. And we were getting frustrated because like we were spending so much time hiking trails and not really seeing, not even spiders. Like, that we would find some spiders, but they're almost too small to get on camera. I'm sure you've come across that.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it was just so difficult to get it to work. And we were like on the top of, I think it was Lindley Point, and it just like overlooks the gorge. As you're really high up, it's beautiful. And then I was like, we're going to film this last scene, and then we're on our way back home. Like, we stopped there to kind of just check that out. And then my wife comes across a snake that's about to shed. And I was like, oh, it's amazing. So we got some cool footage of that. I mean, it was just like a garter snake or something, but still, it was right down the side of the trail, just sunning itself.
And you never see him shedding.
Yeah. It was
That's awesome.
wild.
Yeah. But see, that's so impacting too, right? Like, you see something like that and it's like it's in a way changing. Like, it changes your whole aspect, because then you're like, I want to see more of that, And so then you're looking for it, and then that really changes everything, of course. And that's what I love about hiking. So many, I don't know, man. Like, I'm the kind of hiker that I don't really have to have a destination. Like, I'll always have a destination in mind. Like, sure, we can hike to a waterfall, or we can hike to some summit or whatever. And sure, but like, I don't always make it to the destination, because sometimes I take so long to get there because I'm so focused on all the little details that I wouldn't want to miss just by like trekking on and, making it a workout, like, come on, that's what I got a treadmill for.
Yeah.
And so
for our honeymoon, we actually went to Sedona, Arizona. Like, we flew into Phoenix, we drove up to Sedona, and everybody's like, oh, they got such amazing like spas and all this beautiful, and it's like, no, we're there to hike. Like, that's the only reason we're going.
Yep.
So like, we wake up in the morning, we'd have breakfast, and then pack a lunch, and then like come back when the sun went down, and we'd just be hiking through the canyons or around the red rocks and stuff like that. And there was one, it was Cathedral Rocks or Bell Rock. I think it was Bell Rock. I think that's what it was called. But you park on the side of the road, and it's like, there was like 5 different trails that they had kind of marked out. One was like a mile, just kind of went around the base of the rock, or went up to the rock and back, or something like that. And we had decided to go for the one that was kind of in the middle. So I think it just went around Bell Rock, and we just got so into what we were doing, like just like enjoying the scenery and stuff like that, we missed the trailhead that, where it's split.
Right.
So instead of like curving around back towards our car through Bell Rock, we kept going through, I think it was like Cathedral. I want to say Cathedral, but I don't think that's it. It was something else. Court Rock, or I don't know. It was massive.
Some of the rock.
Our 3-hour hike turned into an 8-hour hike is what happened. And we didn't notice it until we started seeing signs like warning. This is, you're going into an area where there are a lot of snakes and tarantulas and scorpions, and there's no real way for us to get you help. So like, make sure you've got food, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like,
hey, my favorite kind of sign.
Where are we?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And we're way, way out there, and the sun's starting to go down, and we're running into people that are coming the other direction, and they've got like full backpacks on, full of gear. And I'm like, we've got like 2 protein bars and a couple bottles of water. Like, right. I'm a little concerned. Yeah. And we started realizing like it's getting cold. Like the sun's coming down. It's maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, but it's like in the canyon that once that sun goes down, that shadow, it started getting chilly, and we were getting nervous. Like, we don't know how much farther it is to our car. Like, are we going to be stuck out here at night trying to like traverse and stay on the trail? But then we would like come across somebody that was like 70 or 80 with like 2 different hiking sticks, power walking, heading the other direction. And we're like, we're going to be fine.
We're good.
Like, if they're cool, we're cool.
Yeah, right. we're good.
Yeah.
Isn't Arizona just amazing?
Man, I would give anything to go back there. Like, any excuse I have to go to Arizona, I'm like, we're going. We're doing it again. In fact, dude, our whole family, like my wife's brother, or my wife's sister, our brother-in-law, her parent, her mom, that we're all like, that's our goal, is to essentially just uproot everybody here in West Virginia and move to Arizona.
Oh, man.
And just live there.
Yeah, my fiance doesn't care much for heat, so it's the reason why I'm not living there. But
I actually, early on in my life, I spent, it was like a temporary job. It was like 5 months or something like that, working up in Kodiak, Alaska, and I'd been there for like 3 months or so, and I wasn't working on a crab boat or anything exciting like that. I was working at a day camp for the kids whose parents were fishermen, so it's
almost
like they would go out for, I mean, sometimes they'd be out there for like a week or two. So they need somebody to watch their kids, You didn't have family, so it was kind of like a summer camp where some of them would just be there during the day. Some of them stayed there for a week or two. And I had the easiest job. I was the music director, which meant that I played the acoustic guitar around the campfires at night.
Oh,
like
man.
Kids in camp sing-alongs. And hung out with the girl counselors. And yeah, it was a great job. I was like, I can't believe they're paying me. And it was good pay. It was like, I mean, this is like 20 years ago, but paying me $15 an hour plus room and board. So it's like, I have to pay. I just got to live in a house with all the people I was working with, and they made us 2 meals a day and paid me money. So it was like, I just didn't spend. It was just like it was a good way to kind of transition into college. It was a job I could work, get some experience, and save up money,
Yeah.
So that was awesome. But I was there, and I was like, Kodiak is like known for the Kodiak bear. Like, I want to see the largest grizzly bear. And people are talking about how such a and I was like, I've never seen one. They were like, okay, well, if you want to see a Kodiak bear, we'll take you to see a Kodiak bear.
Oh, gosh.
Well, the guy that I worked for, it was an Inuit, he was an Inuit Indian. Lucian was his name, something like that. And he was just laughing at me, and he was like, we'll go. I'll go show you one right now. So we got in his truck, and he's just driving me like out of town, the little, I wouldn't even call it a town, like the corner of Kodiak Island where people live. So we're heading out to out into the wilderness there. And then he like turns towards the dump. I'm like, why are we going to the dump? He's like, you want to see Kodiak bears? This is where you see them. It was like 4 or 5 Kodiak bears. Like, you could just, I mean, they're pretty far away, but
not as
just
majestic.
Going to the dump, grabbing food.
Not as majestic,
Yeah. It's like, well, this is disappointing. I'm not going to take a picture of this.
Right. Oh, that reminds me, my earliest memory at the Oregon Zoo here, that I had was, it was like really wet out, and it was really, my grandparents took me, and like I didn't see a whole lot of animals out, but all I remember seeing was Inji, which was our like 60-something-year-old orangutan, who's still alive, by the way. She's like, I think, no, but she's probably like more like in her 50s at the time, or whatever, 45 or something, but it was cold and wet. and she was inside of like a double XL shirt with a beanie on her head. and I literally was just like, Grandma, like, you took me to the zoo and showed me a bum, you know, like it was like the only animal I saw, you know, like I'm thinking orangutan, like it'll be majestic, you know, and it's like, I was like, oh, okay. It's like sitting on a cardboard box, you know. I was like, what is this? You know?
Yeah. You know, I've started recently getting into macro photography, which is like, I always enjoyed taking pictures of, you know, my spiders and stuff like that. But I would notice, especially on Instagram, like I'd be like, oh, this is an amazing picture, and I'd share it. And then I'd be like, you know, scrolling through and I'd see somebody that was an actual macro photographer. And I'm like, their picture looks so much more amazing than what I thought was an amazing photo I took. How do I learn how to do this? So, and it's so much more complicated than just taking pictures. Like I kind of do a lot of the, like the macro videography, which is a lot to do with, I mean, like sometimes when you're using these lenses, the aperture is so small. Like there's such little light getting through there so that you have the depth of field that people can actually see what it is, that you've got to use a whole lot of light. And I mean, just behind me, I've got like 8 lights that I have to like encircle the table with to have enough to like get a video that sometimes still comes off a little dark. Yeah. But with macro, they're like, you know, there's just all these different like apparatuses for flashes and stuff like that. And I'm learning how to kind of anyways, that's not the important part. The important part is that getting into that community, I learned a whole nother side of conservation. Like these people that are taking these pictures, there's like some controversy in there because a lot of people will, a lot of the photos you see of like jumping spiders and stuff like that, praying mantises, different insects that they do, they're not actually alive. You know, they'll when their jumping spider dies, that way they can keep it perfectly still for the photo that they're taking. Cause sometimes you got to have long exposure times and stuff like that. And they were talking about an issue that sometimes people will like take these insects and put them in the refrigerator or almost like pretty much intentionally kill them in the most humane way possible so they can take these photographs of them. So there's like this huge movement and like, I'm pretty new. So I'm kind of talking out of my side of my neck here, but a huge movement, it seems, in the macro photography kind of realm to treat these things with respect. Like, cause people go out into the woods to take, you know, pictures of different bugs that they see and they're like messing with them. You know what I mean? They're picking them up and they're moving them or they're spraying them with water or something like that just to get a cool photo. And they're saying, we got to stop doing that. Like, that's not responsible. We need to leave them alone. Try not to like take a picture of them, but don't bother them. Don't touch them. Don't pose them. Don't move them to somewhere else that you could get it. Like if they're not on a rock with the sun setting behind them, then they're not on the rock with the sun. Like quit moving them there and trying to take a picture because you don't know what you're doing. And we could be adversely affecting even just small things like that, you know, pulling them out of there. I mean, you might be putting them somewhere where they're in danger now of getting eaten by a predator. Like it's a few steps for us for a tiny little insect.
You could have removed a mother from her babies, from her egg clutches.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, you know, like,
yeah. And it like opened up my mind a lot to like, wow, like, you know, like there's just very small things that we do can have a huge impact on these insects and these bugs and stuff like that. And I think the cool thing with macro photography is that sometimes those images, kind of like what you're doing, like people see those images really up close and you're like, you can't see them that detailed with your eye, you know, and it brings this whole other level of appreciation and awareness and like, wow, this thing is amazing. I never knew it actually looked like that up close. Maybe I'm not going to swat that fly next time, like, or kill that spider in my house. I'll set it outside because it's a beautiful, integral part of nature. So I really respect what you're doing with the conservation and stuff like that. I think it's very cool the way you've kind of bred your art or tied your art in together with conservation. So, I mean, huge props for that. And behind you, I see all kinds of enclosures. So, I mean, what kind of stuff what's in Shape in Nature's collection back there?
Oh, man. Well, I got
why
Gale.
Are you like?
That's my vinegaroon. I have a couple of my desert millipedes, and so they're gosh, I just went blank on the name. Well, they're desert but the I can't remember the scientific name off the top of my head, even though I say it all the time. But then I have blue death fanning beetles, which are. Do you have blue death fanning beetles? Because if you don't, you need to have.
I have a few. Yeah, actually, Peter sent them to me.
Awesome.
Yeah, Peter sent them to me. I was talking about doing a communal with one of my desert scorpions.
Yeah,
and because they're not communal, but I was like, I really want to get some desert communal. He was a proponent for like you should try some of these desert. He sent me a bunch of desert, like some blue death feigning beetles, dark feigning beetles, I think is what they're called. They kind of look this, but they're smooth.
Yeah, smooth darkling
and it's just a whole bunch of different. Yeah,
I love them.
And they've been yeah. Well, I did it in 2 different setups. One was with the desert hairy scorpion, and all the beetles I put in not dermestid beetles. What the heck were they? Little tiny fuzzy beetles, cool looking little black things. I can't remember. I got it written down though. But they're all thriving communally. Everybody's doing fine.
Awesome.
The ones I put in with my Madagascar hissing scorpion, or is it Madagascar or Mozambique? I think it's Mozambique hissing scorpion. That did not go so successful.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah, he was like, "Thanks for the lunch." I was like, "No, don't eat those."
Oh no!
So I pulled out what I could and put him in the other communal. That thing is he's a tank. It's like I'm just going to eat whatever moves.
When I was a kid, I thought all bugs were communal, you know? So when I'd catch bugs, I'd just put them in with each other. Then I caught a Jerusalem cricket in the wild, and I put that with all my other bugs. And then when I went to go see all the other bugs I caught, there was only a Jerusalem cricket in there with a bunch of bug parts. You know, I went, oh, okay. You know,
yeah.
Those things. Have you ever had one of those? Those things are crazy, man. Jerusalem crickets?
No. I don't believe so.
Oh gosh,
what are they exactly?
They're technically not a cricket. They're an orthopteran like crickets, but they look like aliens, man. They're so cool, and they're like a big cricket. Like they look big. They look like a big cricket. They got the legs and everything.
Okay.
But they're incredibly predatory. But they'll eat almost anything, man. Like I'm pretty sure that thing would eat like cheese if I threw it in there. Like they'll eat anything. I don't have them currently, but I do have them from time to time. But I just recently got, actually from Aaron. Aaron sent me a orchid mantis and a spiny flower mantis. And so I'm really excited about those. So she's been wanting me to draw a spiny flower mantis. So I think it's time I probably did that.
They're gorgeous. Now, do you keep these bugs and insects and arthropods and stuff just to draw them? Or
yes
how do you decide?
I like making videos about them and talking about them. And sometimes I will breed. But not very often. I don't really have the space to breed anymore. I used to do a lot more back in the day, but generally if I do breed anything, I'll just give in Peter. So I don't want all the babies necessarily, but I just like to get the video aspect of it and kind of the research aspect. And some bugs, you know, I've never really taken care of them before, and so something new kind of comes by, and I just want to see how it goes. You know, I only have I have some. We have some crested geckos, and in this enclosure right here, which you kind of see is our Pac-Man frog. That's bait. That thing's hilarious, man. That thing's like a little donut. He's awesome. But I have been keeping.
Do you find enjoyment keeping a Pac-Man frog? They seem kind of sedentary, and I'm a guy that keeps tarantulas, so I got a lot of pet rocks.
From an aspect
that always seemed like
from aspects of making funny videos, yes. I think Pac-Man frogs are hilarious because like when you do get video of them, like if you touch one, they'll squeak and they'll make these funny like sounds, you know, and like but as far as like and when they get big, they're just really pretty, you know, they're really neat to see. And but I don't know, yeah, I definitely I kept one before, and it was pretty funny, but for the most part, it doesn't go anywhere. It just chills in its little. It moves occasionally. Like I'll wake up the next day and it'll be over here to the left rather than where it was. But they're not very active, and it's just like a lot of millipedes. Like I used to want to keep like every millipede because I think millipedes are so cool and fascinating. But really, when you have them as a pet, they don't really do anything. Like they just lay there, and like half the time I'm like, oh, is it dead? Did it finally die? And I'll look in there, nope, it's still alive. All right, great, you know, because it's just like not even moving, you know.
I just had an explosion of rainbow millipede babies in my enclosure. I was like, what are these oh, those are babies.
Those are babies.
Okay.
They're cool. I do love millipedes. I've kind of came across this millipede up here in Oregon. They're really long. They're probably about pushing to 3.5 inches or so, but they're really, really thin, and they have really long legs. So, and so when they walk, it's like this like wave pattern. And so we coined the term dragon boat millipede, but they're like California something. I can't remember what they were exactly called, but anyways, they're really active. They're actually really great millipedes. They're kind of like, they're not pretty. They don't look like ivory millipedes or orthoporus like these ones. But But they're really active in their enclosure. They're all over the place. And so I do like those a lot. And they live for a long time. So that's all. Like the flat millipedes are really pretty. Those ones that are like black and yellow, or sometimes they're like red or just like really bright yellow. They're the ones that contain the cyanide. They're really pretty, but my God, I can't for the life of me take care of those things. They do not survive well in captivity. So I've completely given up on that. So people do it. People have done it successfully, but I have not. So I'm not going to risk the death of a living being for that reason.
Yeah, I actually came across I think it's the same. I posted a picture of it on my Instagram months ago. We were hiking down by the New River, and I think we were there with my side of the family. So like my sister and her husband and child and all that stuff were there. And she, like my niece was like, "Hey, you got to come and see it." My niece and my son got really excited, and you got to come check this thing out. And it was black and yellow. It almost looked like a millipede, but I guess it was it almost looked like a centipede, but I guess it was a millipede.
Right.
I like did some quick like Googling and trying to figure out what it is, and I saw that it can excrete a type of cyanide. I was like, maybe you should put that down.
Yeah, you don't want to handle.
I don't know. And they were like, we should bring it home and do a video on it. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it, and it seems to be thriving right here. So let's just leave it right here.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful, and it kind of circles back to what the topic we started off on the podcast. And it's, you go out a lot and you're, catching bugs and stuff like that. And there's just this whole kind of, I don't want to say it's like a chasm or a disconnect between conservation and captivity. But like, how do we kind of like reconcile that, like that desire to want to conserve all these different species of spiders and tarantulas and insects and arthropods in nature, but also want to have them in our own personal collection? Like how can we as keepers like keep these things that we love and educate people about them and raise awareness and stuff like that, while also not detrimentally kind of impacting, their native habitat?
Right. Well, especially for me, like when I say, I guess I go bug collecting, a lot of times I'm just wanting to see what's out there. So I don't really necessarily, when I was younger, I used to really want to have this big bug collection, and I did it for research. A lot of times I would collect specimens and I'd give data back towards, some like a wildlife department or whatever, wherever that area was. Or I'd get permission, I'd make sure I could get permission to collect anything that's out there. Cause you don't want to be collecting anything in like in a state park or anything like that, or it's definitely a wildlife preserve. Don't ever collect in a wildlife preserve unless it's something you're doing for your job, of course. But I think that, and a lot of times I wanted to have a bug collection because I would draw these animals, and it was like getting to have to stare at that specimen and look at it and really like have the full, view of it was awesome. But, I don't really collect much anymore as far as like keeping anything. I like to collect in the wild and take photos if I can and really make videos, and I can just utilize that. But back in the day, I didn't have, an accessible camera on my phone. So, and plus, I don't know, I don't have the room anymore to have any kind of bug collection. But I feel like if you are wanting to collect bugs or insects, arthropods in general, you really have to know what you're doing. I think that if you're just collecting just because like it's cool and like maybe you're a little kid, I guess that's kind of one thing. But really, I personally collected for kind of the research aspect, and a lot of times I would collect something I didn't recognize. So let's say I go every year to a certain area, and all of a sudden, year 5, I find this like bug that's like never been out there. Sometimes it's like, wait a minute, does this even belong here? And so I've collected that, that bug and taken it, to like the wildlife department or somewhere and being like, hey, is this supposed to be here? I saw a lot of them. And actually there's been a few times where they're like, oh, this should not be here. How did this get here? And then that opens up a whole other can of worms. And a lot of the times collecting is sometimes the only way we can actually discover species. I mean, insects can be so similar. Like, it's horrible to think about taking this bug from the wild, but if you're in the Amazon and you're trying to protect an area from them building a dam there and that's going to really destroy the entire habitat there, and the only way to do that is to be like, there is this amount of species that needs to be preserved here, and the only way you have to collect, you have to do that taxonomy, you have to find those animals, and sometimes you get a week, 2 weeks to do it, and you don't have time to go out there and take the most perfect photos of these animals, because if you're going to collect photos of them, you have to take perfect photos of them, because there could be the smallest thing. And sometimes with tarantulas, like sometimes you can only tell a different species by their genes, like the genetics of them. Like you can't even, like this tarantula will look identical to this one to the naked eye. And it wasn't until it was taken into a lab that it was like, actually, these are 2 different species or subspecies or whatever, So I think that if you are collecting unethically, if you are out there traipsing around, ruining stuff, or for profit, if you're just out there collecting blue morpho butterflies because you want to sell them on the black market or whatever, obviously that's incredibly unethical. But if you're one person, and this is of course my opinion, and you're out collecting for doing some research, or you want to see them closer up, or maybe you want to research this animal to see how it does in captivity, where, mostly bugs. I'm really not for the catching of reptiles and amphibians. Those animals need to be in the wild, it's just a different aspect for me. But anyways, where was I going with this? I just kind of went blank. But if you're doing it for research and you're really like trying to like learn about it and learn a certain aspect about it, I think that you're no different than a bird in the wild that would be catching bugs for food, because a bird can catch up to like 600 bugs a day as opposed to you catching 5 or 10. You know what I mean? So, and of course, some people in research fields, they're catching thousands of bugs, and they're doing it not in my, some of the things I've seen where they're just like spraying down those trees and having all the dead specimens fall on the like blanket and stuff. Like, that's rough. And I'm not a big fan of that at all. And even for research, I don't think that that's a correct way of doing it. And it's that understanding of, you're only given a lot amount of time by, the Brazilian government or whatever. And so you have to make a fast impact, but it's like, at what cost, And so that's where, for me, conservation does kind of draw a line a little bit, but that doesn't happen often. Most of the time, scientists are out there collecting specimens by hand, and they're not mass collecting. They're not collecting these bugs that's going to detriment the entire ecosystem. It's by catching 5 grasshoppers or whatever. So it's a yes, I'm very much for, like, obviously leaving the animal alone, let it do its thing. But if we don't interact with any of these animals ever, how are we going to learn about them? So it's very true. Sort of like a give or take kind of situation, in my opinion. And if we haven't learned anything about, if we just kind of like observed from a distance and didn't try to, learn the aspects of how condors breed, how do these animals, they require a certain amount of altitude, a certain amount of height. They require a certain amount of rock for nesting, and if we didn't understand any of that or learned any of that by any means, these animals would have gone extinct. Tigers are a great example of that. Tigers were almost hunted to complete extinction. Many tigers. There are many species of tigers that are completely gone, that are extinct. But luckily, due to interacting and helping these animals, we were able to successfully figure out that, a tiger has a certain amount of, radius for territory. So you can relocate a tiger to a certain area that is this distance away from a village, and the village is fine and the tiger's fine. But had we not interacted with these animals to figure that out, who knows, so it's just kind of a give or take situation.
I feel you. And I what you're saying, I agree with. Like, I don't think you're off base there. I guess what I'm looking for is for you to absolve my own personal guilt. Right. What you're talking about, researchers and stuff like that. Like, I'm on board. The issue that I come across, and I think a lot of people, whether they're keeping, reptiles or, scorpions or snakes, or I already said reptiles, tarantulas, that's what I meant to say. The landscape's constantly shifting,
Right.
Like years and years ago, I got some Poecilotheria species that were just freely available for sale all around the world. They were just a species of tarantula you could buy. Now they are an endangered species. Their habitat has just been destroyed, through urban sprawl, farming, and it just keeps shrinking and shrinking to the point that now this is a protected species. So not only can you not buy it anymore, you can't even really move it across state lines.
Right.
It's protected by CITES, it's protected by, or CITES or whatever that is, and Endangered Species Acts, and it's like I kind of feel bad. Like I have a few in my collection that are technically endangered, and it's like, what do I like? I can't sell it. I can't. I could like donate it to a zoo that lives within the state lines I'm in or something. But you know, it puts me in a weird position sometimes because I feel bad that I have a species that its habitat is being eradicated, and half of me is like I'm glad that I have it because I know it's safe and it's being well cared for and fed and stuff like that. It's not I have to worry about it, you know, its home getting toppled by some loggers or something. But the other time, it's like it's kind of selfish of me to have this species that is rapidly shrinking, you know, worldwide. So I don't want to be part of the problem. And that's like something I talk about in my videos all the time. I really try to drive home like, every species specific video I make. It's like, make sure you're buying captive bred tarantulas. Like, don't buy wild caught tarantulas.
Yes,
like,
that was what I was going to mention. Like, that's the big thing.
Yeah,
you know,
and like I know the specimens I got. I know the person that I bought them from, and I know that they bred them, and they bred them from tarantulas that were. But I mean, at some point, for that species to be in the hobby, it had to be taken out of out of its habitat.
That's the thing, though, is that now it's already been taken out of its habitat. Now it can be established as a captive bred animal. So you want to make sure that, okay, guys, like stop catching these things in the wild. We can captive breed these. There are some animals you can't captive breed because they won't breed in captivity, but tarantulas generally do very well as far as I know. I'm no pro when it comes to breeding tarantulas, of course, but I know that, you know, there's been a big issue with the desert blonde tarantula. With a lot of the desert blondes that you're going to buy are probably captured in the wild, and you can breed them very easily. But the problem is that because they're so accessible in the wild for a lot of people, they just catch them, and that's an issue. Because just because something's accessible doesn't mean it should, you know, it doesn't mean that it should happen, that kind of thing. And so. And I guess now recently I've actually was talking to someone about the desert blonde tarantula, about how they actually are sort of getting kind of rare to see in the wild compared to what they used to be like, because people just constantly collect them for sale. And that's a big no-no. I don't think you should ever do that. And especially with the species like tarantulas that are, you know, kind of dwindling in numbers, you know, certain beetles or certain whatever, like, it's still, though, over harvesting anything is never a good thing. But to collect something, to breed it, to study it, to like, because you love it and you want to know more about it, and you breed it, and then all of a sudden you have, you know, a viable offspring with these animals, and then you're able to distribute that and give that to other people that would actually love to catch one. They're like, oh wait, I could just get one from you. I think that that's great, because you are eliminating catching it in the wild. By doing that, by breeding them, by making sure that people have offspring that people can buy, just like the orchid mantis, you know, I mean, plus, I don't even know how people even see those things in the wild. They're so well camouflaged half the time, you know, I mean, geez,
yeah,
you know, but I would find it more, I would think that it would be a lot more work to try and find these things in the wild. I guess tarantulas are a little different, but I mean, and I guess breeding can have aspects that are kind of hard and difficult. And I guess if you want to make that money, I guess, real fast, you know, you go out and just catch them real quick rather than taking the time to set up an environment for them to breed, and then they laying eggs, the gestation period, all that kind of stuff. But for me, that's a way more cool process. You get to watch its entire life cycle, you know, which is, as a someone that like has a science mind, you know, it's like, that's what I want. You know, I want to see that, you know. But I think you owning a couple or one or whatever of like a species that's dying down, that's not the issue. That isn't the issue. You owning that, if you were to catch it in the wild, that would be a problem. But you owning, you know where it came from, you know that it was bred, like, that's actually kind of great that you have that. Because what if there is a situation where someone contacts you, or you find someone saying, hey, we need these species because they're dwindling, we need them for breeding, if anyone has them, please let us have them. And you could be like, dude, you got it. You know what I mean? Like, here, like, let's do something with this, you know. But really, I mean, all it would be is if you gave that one away to someone else, then that person would just have it. I mean, you know, it wouldn't really make a difference. But the issue is,
and that's kind of the, I'm sorry, what is the issue?
No, I was gonna say the issue really is over collecting. Over collecting is, you know, massive collecting of anything. I mean, look at the tuna that we're dealing with, you know, like tuna, you wouldn't think that tuna would be like an endangered species, but it's becoming threatened. It's that bad. Overfishing is that bad with tuna. And it's like tuna, like those things are like in the millions in the ocean. Not anymore, you know? And I mean, with arthropods, how do you really gauge that too, if you think about it? Like things that are so small. A great thing that I saw recently with the whole, well, an interesting thing, I wouldn't say great, but interesting, would be on Kangaroo Island in Australia, there's a species of pelican spider that was only found in that island. And that almost that whole island burned recently. And they haven't seen any more of the pelican spiders out there in the wild. So, but just because you haven't seen them, I mean, they're like this big, right? Or even like this big. So just because you haven't seen them, they could be out there, maybe, or maybe not. I mean, we don't know when it's something so little, you know. So how do you gauge that of like, okay, is it extinct or is it not? And so I think that it's a hard line with insects because of their breeding patterns. They usually produce a lot more, of course, than other animals. But still, it's still that mindset of like, well, it could be gone, it might not be. So how do you gauge that? And so it's I guess ethics is, if you're going to have bugs in the pet hobby, make sure you know where they're sourced from, is pretty much, I mean, how I feel like it is, you know. And don't get into the black market, you know, don't do that.
Yeah. It's very true. And it's, I understand, like, especially for new keepers, people, my grandmother used to always say, even a sheet of paper has two sides, you know? So it's like, that, and I think that's some of the cognitive dissonance that exists in the hobby, especially like you were talking about earlier, like the desert blonde tarantula. Like a lot of those, like the Aphonopelma species, the Brachypelma species, like species that are from like the southwest of the U.S. or, you know, northern Mexico, live in the deserts and scrublands. Like the people that want to keep those species, that, you know, that want to have them in there, you know, want to keep it as a pet. They don't want a little tiny spiderling that's like half a centimeter. You know, they want something that looks like the tarantula they want when they buy it. They want a tarantula that's black and red, or that's, you know, full grown. And so they are more willing to pay for pay for that tarantula full grown, and they live 30 years, you know? So I think that's one of the hard aspects with, you know, even when you're buying captive bred, is that somebody could have, you know, bred this tarantula 10 years ago. It's still little. You know, had a successful egg sac, and it's still a tiny little sling. It's only a couple inches, and you're going to buy it. And it's going to take another 10 years of you keeping it before it's like really that full adult size. And, you know, so I think a lot of people are very impatient. So they're like, well, I just want to go ahead and buy the large one. So there's a demand for the full grown ones, but the breeders, they've only been breeding for 5 years, so they don't have any. They got a bunch of spiderlings. So then they turn to people that are going out and capturing these things full grown. And a lot of times what you're getting are males, because they're the ones that are easiest to find, because they're out looking, you know, to hook up. Or you'll get ones that are sick. They got nematodes or some kind of parasitic, you know, that's why they were easy to find, because they're half crazy and they're sick. And one thing that's horrible that's been happening a lot lately, I don't know if you've heard about this, but I mean, like the past year, it seems to be coming up over and over and over again, is people are buying like a desert blonde tarantula or a curly hair tarantula or some kind of like Mexican species, and they get it, they have it for a few months, and it produces an egg sac. So that's like immediately, you know, okay, that was wild caught. So not only did they remove that tarantula out of the wild, but they also removed hundreds of babies that would have potentially, you know, been there to repopulate, you know. It's kind of heartbreaking when you see that. So that's why I at least, you know, personally, and then like through all my social media, everybody that's kind of helping me out, really push that narrative, like make sure you're buying captive bred. And it's not because we're trying to support these small businesses, you know, I mean, we are, but it's because we know they're doing this responsibly. Right. Yeah. And there have been businesses, and I'm not going to like call anybody out on name right now, but that I was supporting, you know, I was, you know, I had it on my list of reputable dealers, talked about them in videos, and then later found out, oh, that dude's selling like wild caught tarantulas. Right. Like, we got to remove them then, because I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be perpetuating a problem. And that really, the only reason they're doing that is because they have access to them, and they know they can make a lot more money selling an adult tarantula than the slings that they have.
Well, and that's another thing that's hard is, for instance, here in the Northwest, there are tons of species of amphibian, right? So you have the Pacific giant salamander, you know, which is such a like incredible salamander. They're huge, you know, like a giant, and they're dumpy looking, you know, and there's all different kinds of frogs and whatnot. And it's like that temptation. Like, I mean, I personally would never, but like, I get people, like, I'll post a video about some salamander I found or something like that, and I'll have people message me online being like, hey, I'll pay you this much to like send me one of those. And it's like incredibly illegal to do, by the way, like incredibly illegal, especially when it comes to amphibians, and especially because the Pacific salamander is actually like pretty threatened, you know? So like it's a risk, but people like, I've been offered like $1,200 for something like that before. And it's like, absolutely not. Like, you know, no, I'm not in the black market thing, you know, but
right.
Someone probably will. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, and how do you really stop that? You know, how do you stop that kind of issue? And it's just all about ethics. It's all about like, the only thing I can do is to make sure that I don't do it personally. You know, like if I catch something, you know, and I really want to take it back, I want to observe it, I want to see what it, you know, what it does and whatnot, you know, I kind of like make sure that like it's not, you know, or if it does provide eggs, that I take those eggs and I put them in a very special area where they would have been, you know what I mean? So it's, I don't really ever have that issue too much. I mean, again, like I most of my bugs are from, you know, from Peter and whatnot, and just stuff that I got from him. But, I have collected a few beetles, like a few of the Rugo stag beetles and whatnot, just to kind of get some fun video of them and see what they look like and whatnot, you know. Definitely not an endangered insect by any means, you know. And after it passed away, I pinned it and kept the specimen, you know, so I can observe it to draw it and whatnot. But and they're just like the cutest thing ever. But I have come across insects that have, you know, like butterflies and whatnot that are endangered, you know, and it's also knowing what you're collecting, you know, because sometimes like, you know, it's like if you're collecting butterflies, Lepidopterans, they're really pretty, but they're just so discovered already. Like everyone loves the butterflies and moths and stuff. So I don't really research it that much anyway. So I don't really catch them much anyway, but I did catch one that was really endangered one time. And I was like, oh, I just like let it go. I was like, bye, you know, like I didn't want to, you know, like, and I think that when I was a kid, you know, I wanted to collect them, because I'm just a collector in general. I'm a big art collector, and I collected coins when I was younger and all kinds of stuff. I collect records and music and all, you know, but, it was really that aspect that I saw that I collected something one time, and I realized that it was actually protecting its brood. It was a beetle, and it did have eggs with it. And I just like felt so bad. I was like, oh man. And I just like put that beetle right back where it was. And as soon as I put it down, it like scurried over to its like clutch and like hid over it. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, oh, you know, like, but you know, I think that, and I'm not one that's like against it, but really also, if you're going to collect, like do it sustainably, you know, like don't go and like just tear apart habitats and ruin stuff. You know, that's so many people that go look for certain tarantulas, you know, they dig up the earth and they dig up all these burrows, and it's just like, oh, you know, like there's so many other things living in there, right. You know, like just find one online that's not caught, you know, like,
and that's one thing I've learned that I appreciate, like about with the macro photography kind of niche, like that whole community of people. A lot of times, and I've noticed it's just recently because like I said, I just kind of got into it. But they will post pictures of these amazing insects or spiders that they found out in nature, and you know they'll list what camera they used, what lens, what flash, what kind of diffuser, what the settings on the camera were, all this information. And then it'll be like what the species is, what it is, like what the subject is. And there'll be like location not shared to protect the animal because they know it's a beautiful species. And that if they say, I got it at this exact, you know, these coordinates, then people will go out there and start collecting them.
Oh, I get that.
So they kind of have that. Yeah.
I was like, where'd you get that? You know?
Yeah, it's like they hide that information to protect the species, which I think is very cool. And that happens sometimes in the tarantula hobby. Like the Psalmopius victori, which is like the Mexican half and half tarantula, or it's also known as the Darth Maul tarantula. It's a beautiful arboreal species. It's like half of its body's red, the other half's black. And I was doing a video on it and was researching it, and you couldn't find the exact location because the people who, like the scientists or researchers or whatever that found them and collected them, they're not releasing that information because they don't want the black, you know, the black market. People going in there and grabbing a bunch out, and they were able to get some into the pet trade. You know, they were able to collect specimens and get them into where they could be bred and sustained, you know, in the hobby, but they still won't tell you exactly. Like they'll give you the country, but it's like they're in a small section of that country, a very specific location, and we're not going to tell you because we don't want people going in there and just grabbing them and selling them for cheaper on the black market. And, you know, I'm 100% for that kind of sustainable collection and breeding. I think what Mexico's doing right now is really cool. Like all the Mexican species, like they're doing kind of the exact opposite of what Brazil's doing. And it's like, we'll let you breed them and we'll let you sell them into the hobby, but it's all going to be regulated and certified, you know? So when you export Mexican species into the US for the purpose of selling, they come with certification numbers that you can like, look, okay, this was a legal export that was legally obtained and bred in Mexico and shipped here. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I wish they would do that with a lot more species. But so like, I'm 100% for that. But then that other side of that sheet of paper is what, like, when you look at what's going on in Brazil and you've got a beautiful, extremely rare, recently discovered tarantula, like the Tshirts, that its habit. I mean, there's not many out in nature, and it's their habitat systematically being destroyed, whether it's from people expanding their farms or forest fires or whatever it is. Like it's being destroyed. But that government in that country is like, we are not allowing any exporting of any of our, you know, endemic species. So when they show up in the hobby in Europe or in America, you know, immediately like the U.S. government's like, you know, I did a video on this about whether the Tshirts is illegal, because according to CITES, I always mispronounce it and people correct me.
Right.
It's like the government didn't, you know, legal. They didn't sign the paperwork and legally let people export that from their country. So technically it's illegal because we broke Brazil's law, removing it. It's now against U.S. law to have them and breed them and sell them and stuff like that. So it's a terrible situation because like, we're not just doing this, or people aren't just exporting them and breeding them and selling them for a profit. Like they're trying to sustain their business, you know, but they're also trying to protect a species that is very close to becoming extinct if what's happening in Brazil right now continues to happen. So it's like, where do I land on that topic? You know, am I for people breaking the law to save a species, and export things illegally, or you know, do you hold fast to that? You've got to do it by the book. You know, it's a tough situation, and it's something that I struggle with. I know that the hobby struggles with, and I know it's not just tarantulas, like stick insects, like you guys. That seems to be a whole mire of controversy there.
Well, yeah, I mean, stick insects, I mean, they could, you know, their eggs can survive like frost temperatures and whatnot, so they can deposit eggs whenever they want, and when it gets warm, they'll hatch, you know. Now Peter would be the one to talk about stick insects. He's that guy, like he bred them all. He knows all of them, but so definitely a conversation you want to have with him on those. But I've had a few. I do have some, and I got them from a place where they're bred. You know, they definitely weren't caught. They're the big Australian ones, you know. But like I freeze the eggs. Most of the eggs, I don't want to just breed a ton of them, you know, because they're parthenogenic, so they are going to breed on their own, you know. So they just keep dropping eggs. But right now they can't. They're just little ones. But I think that the only problem with it, and I agree with you on that, as far as what Brazil is doing, because I think that there's a way to like do it with permits, you know, just like anything. Like I think that you should go through a process where like, okay, you want the species here, and you're like, look, I breed these animals already. Like this is something I'm really good at. I want to breed these for, you know, captivity reasons. I want to breed these for the survival of the species. And it's just like any kind of permit of owning some kind of permitted animal, right? But they're just not allowing it at all. They're just like, no, like nothing. And it's like, listen, the Amazon has just like had a huge time thing where it burned down. Like they are losing their habitat. Like, you know, like we want to do something about this. And I understand, because like a lot of people, they just want it for profit. You know, they just want to get it and sell it and whatnot. But if it's already regulated, I don't understand why they can't put different, you know, permits for certain people to be able to do that. That you have to apply for, that you have to pay for, you know, to really show that you're like, yeah, I really want to do this, you know. And it's just, I know that it's a sticky situation, you know, working at zoos and whatnot. You know, everything has to be permitted, of course. You can't just like I don't understand that. Like in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that, sure, like there was animals caught out of the wild and put in zoos, and that was awful. And like We know that. But like a lot of people think that like even our zoo, they're like, oh yeah, but those are just caught in the wild. I'm like, not a single like one of these animals at our zoo is caught in the wild. Like none of them. They are either rescued from black market, or they are old and they are retired from areas, or they were captive bred. Like that. Those are the only three options. Like, you know. Yeah. But I mean, if we weren't allowed to do that, if we weren't allowed to have those permits to take care of elephants and rhinos, then, you know, how that would be pretty detrimental, I would think, on not allowing those animals to survive and having them in captivity and us constantly being able to breed them. I mean, tigers are a great example of that. You know, tigers luckily are making quite a bounce back, but they were almost gone. They were like, every species was like almost out of there, you know. And if we weren't able to take care of those animals and raise them and breed them, it's possible we wouldn't have them at all. So back to tarantulas, it's kind of like, is anyone in Brazil doing anything about them? Do you know? Like, is there like any groups that are like really trying to protect these species? Or
I mean, I'm not an expert in this topic at all, but from what I've gleaned and the research that I've done, Brazil's weird. Like, I get messages from people all the time that live in Brazil that watch my videos that aren't allowed to keep tarantulas in their house that are endemic to Brazil because that's illegal. You know, wow. So like they don't have any Brazilian species, like ones that I have and I'm making videos on. They're like, yeah, I'm not allowed. I can go out in the forest, you know, out in the rainforest and maybe find one. But if I bring it into my house, I could get in trouble, you know, so they got to leave them alone. And from everything I've like, and it's not just the T. Celedonia, like that just was like the catalyst that kind of brought this whole thing, this whole Brazilian species issue up. Like any species that is endemic, you know what I mean? Like you can't find it in Paraguay, or you can't find it in any other country in South America. If it's just in Brazil, then technically, like since I don't remember what the year, like 1994 or something like that, they haven't issued any permits to have those species. So you got ones that were discovered in the late 90s or early 2000s that are well established in the hobby that people are like, well, shoot, are we not allowed to have these either? You know, like there's millions of them out there. Like, it's such a double-edged sword, and it kind of brings us back to the beginning of our conversation, like just trying to find some way to connect conservation and the pet hobby, you know, whether, no matter what it is, but the people that are out there, you know, fighting with governments or, you know, negotiating with them to try and, you know, preserve these species in their native habitats. Like it just seems like we got two huge groups of people that are very passionate about certain insects or arthropods or tarantulas or whatever it is that most people, the majority of the world, could care less about because they're like, oh, they're creepy. I don't like roaches. I don't like, you know, they can all die. It'll be fine. Like I don't want to run into them. And it's like, well, they're a very integral part of our ecosystem, and you know, it's. So how can we get the people that are huge into conservation, the people that are huge into the pet hobby together and working together towards that common goal instead of kind of being at odds with each other? Like, I think that's really what I want to figure out.
So in a way that's, I mean, I guess my company is to just bring the public in generally in within conservation and to conservationists, so they can kind of have this way to support each other. But I think that there's definitely a disconnect because one side believes this and one side believes that. But really, I mean, there's valid arguments for both sides, of course. And I think that in a way, it's kind of like getting that middleman, like getting away to it. Like if you were to finally contact one person that's willing to like work with you on it, and then it's like you start from there, you know, you finally, here you are working together with a conservation company or a conservation you know, effort, and then now you guys are working together, it's proving to be effective, you guys are having viable evidence that things are going well, and then it kind of just branches out from there. I feel like, I mean, that's really the only way it's going to happen, is that someone on this team is going to have to be like, yeah, let's do this. And someone on this team is going to be like, yeah, let's do this and work together. That's really the only way to bring it in, because there's no one person is, not everyone is going to agree about something, right? Like some, you know, people are going to be upset that you own tarantulas. There are people out there that are probably really mad that you would own tarantulas. Or people probably really mad that I own bugs or whatever. And they don't have any understanding as to why would you want to keep that? Why? Well, in the same boat, it's like, why do you want to play football? Why do you want to get brain damage? Like I'm not a football player, but for a lot of people, that's their life, and good for them. Like you know, like continue to play your sport, continue to do what you love. You know, I love to research animals. I love to have them around me. I love to be their source of art and beauty. And I think that a lot of people put very humanistic impressions on arthropods as well. Like I keep tarantulas in a smaller enclosure because they prefer it. And to the person that doesn't realize that are going to go, why don't you have this big thing for it? It's in such a small area. I'm like, that tarantula wants to stay right there. Like it doesn't want to go anywhere. And that's where it likes to live. And that's a lot of bugs. Like, you know, they're not this big migratory species like some kind of bird or something like that, you know? And so a lot of people are going, oh, I can't believe you would have something in this cage. And it's like that insect or that arthropod or arachnid, like they don't know any different. Like that's their home, that's their territory, and they will defend it. And that's where they want to be. And they're safe and they know it. So it's just, I think that it's just comes down to education for that aspect. And I think with what you're talking about with conservation is how they see a lot of pet breeders as a part of the problem. Well, obviously there's a reason they feel that way. Obviously there is some of the pet hobby that is a problem. A lot of the black market is a part of the issue, and that is the part of the pet hobby, unfortunately, selling of animals, you know, so there's no going beyond that, you know, there's going around that. But it's really showing those conservationists being like, hey, I want you to give me a chance. I want you to understand that, like, I'm actually doing this because I really do want to help and make a difference, and any way that I can do that. And I'm not out there collecting these things just for profit. I don't even sell these things. You know what I mean? Like, and really like being like, hey, you're kind of generalizing all of us, which is a little unfair, because it is unfair. Like, you know, basically a lot of people are saying, oh, well, all these pet breeders are bad because they're breeding pets. Well, that's not true. You know, it's just like with dogs, you know, there's puppy mills, bad pet breeders, and there are people that really love their animals and they breed these animals and they take good care of them, and those are the people you want to go to, and you got to find those people, you know. But if you were to just say all dog breeders are bad, we shouldn't have dogs, well, that's absurd. Everyone should have dogs, you know, as long as you're taking good care of them. You know, like as long as you're loving that animal. You know, if you're a bad pet owner, then don't ever have animals. But you know, it's the same thing with like spiders to me. Like I'm someone that keeps bugs and believes in conservation at the same time, so I can understand both aspects. But I think working with conservation efforts and trying to work with conservation efforts, I've learned a lot in the idea of like, they just must deal with a lot of scammers, because I've gotten a lot of emails in return being like, you know, like, dear scammer, like, screw you, like, no, like, we don't want your help, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, like, but I guess to that aspect, that was probably the 15th email they got in like however many days from the same situation of like, we want to donate like 0.2% and blah, or whatever, you know? So I guess maybe they just generalized it and they're just sick of it, you know? And the only, like I said, the only way I really got into it was because I knew someone that said, okay, we'll accept you. Let's do this. And then that branched out from there, because then they saw that I was working with them, and then a different organization saw that. And so it kind of branched out. So I'm assuming that the only way to really get conservations within the pet hobby is to have that mutual understanding, is to have someone willing on this side and someone willing on that side. And it's just about finding that person. And it may take forever. I mean, it may take a long time, but it's worth giving it a shot, in my opinion, because that could be the catalyst right there. That could be the catalyst that, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can make this work. We can do this. And then more companies and more organizations and more scientists start opening their minds up to the aspect of people that collect these animals, that want to help, that want to make a difference as well. And I mean, that would be awesome to see, you know, like I would love to see that. So.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I started this podcast, is so we could have these like long form conversations on topics like this.
Right.
Like, there's no way that we could have just discussed everything we just talked about as far as conservation, the pet hobby, in a 10-minute YouTube video, and definitely couldn't have done it in a 30-second TikTok or something like that.
Right.
You just can't really dig deep enough in those. So that's why I mean, I'm sure that people that are in conservation aren't actually listening to my podcast because it's not that big yet, but we're having that conversation, and people in the hobby are going to be hearing it, and they're going to be thinking about it and what they can do, you know, and make sure they're buying from captive bred specimens, and that they're open to, because I feel like it's really on us, like the people that are in conservation and that are into researching these species, like they have got the higher ground because they're on the scientific aspect of it.
Right.
I feel like, at least for me, it's my responsibility to not just meet them halfway, maybe even go a little bit further,
Right.
and try and show them like we're not all the problem, like we're not all doing the black market trading, and it's difficult, but hopefully the conversations like we have just been having will really kind of help illuminate a lot of people in the hobby and maybe make some kind of impression on the scientists.
Right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, like there's so much potential within combining those two. I mean, on the conservation aspect, breeding something that's doing horrible in the wild. And here's the thing with arachnids, it's not like you're breeding a polar bear. You can't breed a polar bear in captivity and then expect it to go live in the wild just fine. You breed a bug, or you breed an insect or an arachnid or an arthropod or whatever in captivity, you can put those things back into nature. They will just do their thing. They will do their job. They'll just be the exact bug they were. They're not going to know any different. And so that's where there's a big aspect is like, what if conservationists are seeing that there's something dwindling and they were able to come to someone in the hobby and be like, hey, here is a collection of what we collected of these animals. Can you get viable offspring out of these? And we are going to release all of them back into the wild for the next 15 years. The Oregon Zoo is doing that. They have their own lab, so they do it themselves. But they're breeding checkered spot butterflies, and every year they release the ones back out into the wild because they were doing really bad in a certain area of Washington. Which I don't want to mention that because I don't want people to catch them. But
sure.
But that's like, think about it. Think about like being a scientist, right? You only get so much funding. If you were able to go to a person that wants to do this for free, they already do this, they want to take their time to do this, they're willing to help out, and they're like, and you're just like, here, you take this over and you guys raise these things for us, that alleviates an entire job that they're having to do in that field. I mean, that alleviates something for them. I mean, that's such a benefit. There's so many possibilities of going into that field. And not to mention, there needs to be more education about the ethics of breeding and the ethics of the pet trade, because a lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people are buying things like betas where, you go to the store, right, and there's a beta in a jar, and like, you shouldn't have just some beta in stagnant water. Yes, they can survive in that water, but they shouldn't be. They should be taken care of just like any other fish. They should be, having the proper, pH levels and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fish person, but you know what I mean? Like I've learned that that's a big problem. And same with tarantulas. Like a lot of people will buy the tarantulas. They have no lighting for them. They don't have any kind of heat source for them. And pet stores aren't telling people that every time. Some do. Some pet stores are terrific. And like they are, here's the whole way of taking care of this thing. Like, but there are a lot of places that I'll go, like Petco even. You go in there and you buy something and they're just like, good luck, figure it out. Like there's no wait a minute,
Yeah, it's actually the exact opposite with tarantulas. Like most tarantula species don't want any light, no heat source. Right. Like they're perfectly fine at room temperature. And you've got people at the pet store being like, well, you need a reptile heat light and a heat rock and a heat pad, and like, I mean, they're telling you all this stuff like it's a snake, and it's like, yeah, all of like that. Not only does it not need it, but that could actually kill some species. Right. Like if they had that much heat, and you're zapping all the humidity out of the air. But but yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's like I get this comment a lot. Actually, I understand why these researchers and stuff, these conservations, nonprofits would be skeptical and maybe jaded. Like, I mean, I have a small YouTube channel and I get 5 to 10 emails a day from people unsolicited wanting me to advertise whatever on their channel, a music player, or I mean, like weird stuff too. Like, like sunglasses or like cell phone chargers. I'm like, what? You apparently have not watched my channel. Like because I don't do tech reviews. Like, I don't understand. They're like, we'll pay you this much money and just do like a 1-minute ad. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. And as much as I would definitely love to have some sponsors that will help pay and offset some of the like price of all these lights and cameras and stuff that I'm using. I'm not going to do that. And then a lot of times they're scams. Like you kind of look into them a little bit more and you realize like really what they want you to do is to give them your email and password for your YouTube account so they can check your analytics to figure out how much they're going to pay you. And then they just, I mean, it's just like a phishing operation. You know what I mean? They're just trying to get your data. So, I mean, there's a lot of scammers out there with the promise of giving you money that really just, want to use your name or, and I understand like that would give, like, I would understand, like, if they were a reputable, nonprofit, they would look at, especially like a breeder or somebody who's making doing it for profit. Like,
right.
They just want to use our name to make more money, and not really give us anything, so I understand where they're coming from.
And that's just it. That's why I actually kind of was like, you know what? I dialed back and I was like, I'm just going to donate the money to these people. Like, I email them every time I say, hey, just letting you know, I'm releasing this shirt. I'll show them the shirt, I'm going to donate 30% to you guys, just giving you a heads up. And then, like, I don't ever hear back. And then I donate the money and they're like, oh, hey, and I'm like, because it was action, not just words, because I'm sure they probably get stuff all the time that's just like scam after scam after scam. I mean, my gosh, it's disgusting just like how horrible that is. And I constantly see just like these Facebook ads that are just like, buy a bracelet and we'll plant 15 trees or whatever. And it's like, you're like, are you for real? Yeah. Like, and then you look and research and there's like no information about them at all, except for like, the rainforest is dying and like there's no solution or anything like that. And it's like, where are you planting these trees from? How are you planting these trees? Why aren't you showing that you're planting these trees? It's like, what the hell? And so I don't know, man. I would encourage you specifically, especially if you're wanting to get in the conservation field, is to really take an aspect of like contacting these places and being like, look, I am someone that keeps these animals and I definitely check my sources and whatnot. And I would love to pick your brain about like how we can combine the conservation field with the pet hobby to really make an ethical and legitimate thing in the pet hobby. Because it's kind of a bummer, because I would hope that most scientists would be really accepting of that, because that would be a great solution to figure out a way to have really to get this, pet hobby under control. I mean, man, it's like, I can't believe that people sell sugar gliders, like, it's like, what, and a friend of mine has a sugar glider and he takes care of it very well. It has a massive cage, but like, I've seen so many people that own these cute sugar gliders. They got them for their kids because their kid really wanted one. And they're in this like little tiny cage. There's like no proper lighting, and they don't have any like way of it to sleep very well. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And there's no regulation on it. Like, you can legally sell, sugar gliders and it's just whatever, and it's like, wait a minute, like that, like how we need to figure out a way to control that a lot better rather than just like letting, Susan, who's like 4 years old, like buy one because she really wanted one, and then the parents don't take care of it at all. It's just, I mean, same what goes with tarantulas, I would assume, I mean, people want to get all these really cool tarantulas, but like you said, they go to the pet store, they buy a tarantula, and then they're told they need to buy all this stuff for it. And then before you know it, it's dead. And they're like, how'd it die? It's like, well, there was.
That's like the majority of the comments and messages that I get are, I mean, one are people that are like, well, the pet store told me this. And it's like, look, I'm not bashing anybody that works at a pet store, but they're not experts, like they didn't go to college to work at Petco, part-time. They love animals. I'm sure they do, and they probably have a spit. Like maybe they really like hamsters or they really like cats, but if they're the only one on shift and somebody wants to buy a tarantula, like they may not know much about it. And it's their job to sell stuff and make you feel comfortable, but you really got to do your own research.
It's I get, I was gonna say, it's just like doctors, a doctor diagnoses a bite of a spider and he's like, oh yeah, it's a spider bite. And like, I've even had friends that are doctors that are like, I had no idea what it was. I just said it was a spider bite. And I'm like, dude, like 90%, 97% of like all spider bite claims are like false. You realize, because like spiders almost never bite hardly. And people like, but everyone thinks they do because their doctor told them. And because it was their doctor that told them. Right. But the doctor's not an arachnologist. He studies completely opposite things. So he sees some weird rash or some weird, like what looks like a bite. And he's like, yeah, it was a spider bite. Here's some cream. You're good. And then it was a spider bite though, because the doctor said so. Same thing.
Oh, yeah. I get that all. That's so many people have told me that, I was bitten or so-and-so was bitten by a brown recluse spider. I'm like, highly doubtful because they have a very specific range that they can live in and survive. Like, and that's not way up here, you know, like we are outside of that range. How did a brown recluse, you know, come from the southwest or southeast of the U.S. all the way up here, and like the cold weather? Like that doesn't make any sense. And then ran
back.
It's possible. Yeah, I mean, it's like maybe like somebody lived down there and is stowed away in their, you know, their furniture or something while they were moving, but it's not going to live very long once it's up here, and it, you know. But it's that what my doctor said it was a brown recluse bite. And it's like, well, your doctor's not, like you said, it's not a arachnologist. And like, I was reading somewhere that was like 90% of like spider bites that are, you know, diagnosed by doctors are really just MRSA.
Yeah.
And, and people don't want to go around saying, well, I got MRSA. So they're like, well, I got bit by a spider.
You got bit by a spider.
Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah.
You got MRSA. Oh. Like, don't be ashamed. It happens.
It is my biggest pet peeve when it is like, and of course that person that tells me they got bit by a spider, they are all of a sudden like a, you know, professional now. They're like and they know everything about it. And that's why they know for sure they got bit by a spider. And I'm like, so did you see the spider? Well, no, but I saw one in my room the day before. I'm like, that's so prejudiced, you know, like that is so like, what the hell? Like, that is so not fair, you know?
Yeah. Like, I get comments a lot of time from people that are upset. Like you were talking about earlier, that like, how can you keep that tarantula in such a small enclosure? And it's like, well, you know, in the wild, it has a huge environment for it to live, but it doesn't move more than like a foot or two.
But it spends 30 years in that hole that it's been living in, and like that, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, sometimes I give them too much space. Like they don't utilize half their enclosure. Like they just never walk over there. You know, a lot of it, I think, is education. You know, educating people about these animals. No matter what it is, just to try and I don't know, bring awareness. But I like you were talking about earlier, with as far as the conservation goes, like I think what got my foot in the door with that zoo I had mentioned, is that they actually all initially, when I was talking, you know, it was like I had to move up the chain. Like, so I was talking to like a research assistant or something at first, and they kind of vetted me like, hey, you might want to talk to this guy. So then I talked to the next person, and I get all the way up to the director of that department. And they actually offered to pay me much more for what it was they wanted than, you know, I was like, what you just offered me, you could go to any breeder, like online dealer, and get it cheaper than that, you know? And I was like, you know what? I don't want any, like, just give me pay for the shipping label. I'll send it to you overnight. You can have them, you know, like, right. And that blew their minds. You know, they were just like, really? Like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, just let me tell the story at some point, and we'll call it even. And they're like, all right. And that, like, now we have this open avenue of communication. And I think had I taken the money, they'd be like, all right, yeah, this guy's just in it for the profit. You know, we got what we wanted. He got what he wanted. Let's not, you know, deal with him unless we need to. But
right.
So I think I agree with you on that. Like, you know, making it not about the money and trying to prove to them through action that I'm trying to help, you know, I'm trying to do the next right thing here, not just make a quick buck.
Well, and that's just it. You know, when people buy, like, I'm a small business, you know, so anytime someone gives me a sale, you know, it's like so important to me. It's right now due to COVID, like, this is all I'm making my money from, you know, is by selling my shirts and my stickers and whatnot. But like, I love that people appreciate my artwork and that people appreciate conservation. And so like, I'm so giving in that way. Like, I give away so many stickers like all the time, you know, and you know, I'll get people messaging me that are just like, oh yeah, I got these. And they like, I wanted to get these, but I just couldn't afford it. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, like, just like, here you go. It's fine. I'll live, you know? And I think that like, it's because I love what I do. I love creating art. I love animals. I love telling people about animals. I love explaining to them like, hey, like, look how important these are. And I mean, my main goal is, if I could get a little bit bigger, of course, you know, is I want to sell mostly shirts and do just like animals that are like so unknown, you know, like the, you know, you go to Madagascar and you can do the fossa and the aye and all these like crazy animals that like no one's ever heard of, right? And really make tangible, like physical, like stickers and patches and all this kind of stuff of those animals more than I want to actually do the more popular animals. But of course, to make sales, I got to do the more popular animals. You know, I gotta sell that panda.
Right.
You know, but really, I want to sell this weird bug or this like weird fish. You know, like, you know.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. Is I want to create a way that where, like, if you want products that are based off of cool wildlife, like, you go to Shapes in Nature, because not only are you going to get a cool shirt, but you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to get a cool aspect on that wildlife that you're paying for. And on top of that, you might find something that you might be passionate about. You might see another animal that you've never heard of or seen before and be like, wow, those are so cool. Like, oh man, I'd love to get a shirt of that. And it's like, go to Shapes in Nature, you know, or I'd love to get some stickers of that. Go to Shapes in Nature, you know? So that's,
yeah.
And when I started this, I was kind of like, I need to get into the conservation field. And, you know, I'm no scientist. I'm no, like, you know, person that's like out there currently making the, you know, change in the world. I would love to be out there. And someday I hope to be actually out there helping these people. But I realized that I could be an aspect, and I could be kind of the person that, like, shows how cool it is and how imperative it is, rather than them having to do that. You know, I can kind of alleviate that job from them by being sort of that middleman and saying, hey, let me come over and tell your story. You know, let me show the public, like, what you guys are doing and how impacting this is and how important this is. And I could sell shirts along the way. We can donate money to your campaign. We can raise awareness, and we can make this fun. And it's really been great because people are starting to recognize that. People are starting to realize that I'm really serious about that. Like, the money, I don't care. I like that I'm making product, that I'm making money from that, so I can keep doing what I'm doing. But that's not why I'm doing it. I would way rather, you know, live in a 2-bedroom house for the rest of my life rather than some mansion, and get to, like, travel and, like, spread conservation and, like, tell people about these awesome, amazing animals than being rich any day of my life. I could care less about that. You know, like, and so
I feel you, man. Right.
And so I think that that's kind of like, that's what you're wanting, is like, you're kind of like, hey, like, let's combine these two, pet hobby with conservation, because those aspects are actually very similar if you really think about it, for people that are ethically breeding and in the pet hobby. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, there are people out there that want to keep a tarantula just because it's edgy and cool and dark.
Oh yeah, or a snake,
look like a badass or something like that. But that's at least in my experience, it's a small minority of the people.
Right.
You know, maybe that's how they started, but then they got that species and they had to learn about it so they could keep it alive, and then became kind of enamored with it, and then realized, like, for me, I got my rose-haired tarantula, my first tarantula, and I had it for years.
Right.
Like over a decade. Didn't even know that there were so many. I didn't know there was over 1,000 species of tarantulas.
Isn't that crazy?
But that one, that foot in the door, it took a while, but then I realized, oh, people are selling them online. Oh my gosh, there's so many different colors from so many different countries. And I just fell headfirst into that rabbit hole. And like, before today, we've never really talked, you know?
Right.
I don't think we've ever, like, had a real conversation like this. And,
no.
And I feel like I've made a new friend. I feel like we're on the same page.
Right, absolutely.
With a lot of this stuff. And, you know, I'm sure that my invitation to join you and Peter in India got, like, filtered into my spam folder on my email, so I'm not going to hold that against you. But, you know, maybe next time you guys are planning a trip like that, you'll be like, hey, maybe Richard would want to come with us too.
and you know what, we would be so about that. And, you know, you should definitely, especially next year, we're definitely gonna be taking some trip to Arizona, by the way. We do it every year. We just did it this year.
Yeah.
So you got to come. You got to check it out. It would be a blast. And I'm sure Peter
I'm considering that an invitation, and yeah, I'm going to go with you.
You got it. So. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, Peter, you know, I can't wait for you to talk to him, because it's just funny, because him and I, we're like family at this point, you know, and he's like, and he is so just interesting, and he'll talk to you forever about bugs, and he's just like, I love it, because Peter always does this thing where he's always like, well, I mean, I'm like no professional, I don't know, and then all of a sudden, like, he's like talking about this entire, like, ecosystem of this, like, certain bug, and I'm like, oh really, Peter? Yeah, you don't really know anything about that, sure, you know. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
like,
he is fascinating to talk to.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean,
I've, like, never actually I've never bought any of your stickers, but I have over 20 of them.
No way.
Because Peter keeps sending them to me.
Awesome.
Aaron from Arthropod Ambassadors, and then just like random people, like just like sometimes I just get like not a lot, but sometimes I get fan mail, and inevitably there'll be like a couple of, I'm like, those are Shapes in Nature stickers.
That is
like,
so cool.
That's
awesome.
So I kind of feel bad. I have a whole collection of your stickers, and I haven't actually bought any myself, but I definitely want to get a couple of shirts from you. So how do I do this? Like explain to the audience, like how do people find your merchandise and help support what you're doing?
Shapesinnature.com, and there's a shop section on there. You can click it. It has a whole selection of different things, with whether you want stickers or patches or pins. I have pins as well. I do this thing called mystery sticker packs. It's kind of something I started, and I actually kind of base it off of Pokemon cards, which is kind of funny. And what's funny, I don't actually really even collect Pokemon cards, but I love the whole, like, you get this random pack and there's rare ones in it, and there's like not so rare ones, and then there's like common ones in it, so you can kind of collect them. And so I kind of created that aspect because there's so many different animals, and I want to just create hundreds of different animal designs and just make fun stickers and shirts and all kinds of stuff out of them. And so I'm coming up with a holiday one actually pretty soon. I just got the stickers in. It's called the Shapes in Nature Holiday Mystery Sticker Pack, and it's a bunch of cool stickers. And a lot of those stickers you can only get in those packs, and they're not even guaranteed. Like, so a lot of people will buy multiple ones and whatnot, but it's a lot of fun. I had some stickers. Oh, here I had. So just to get an idea of how many stickers I really have, I don't know if you know or not, but this is about half of all the different stickers that I have.
Oh, wow.
So
for those that are just listening on the podcast, he has, I don't even know, 30 or 40, it looks like.
Oh,
there's two handfuls of
65 stickers in here.
All right, there you go.
So at least I think
those look amazing.
More. And there's tons. And I love creating, ones that are like glittery. Here, let's see where this camera, there it is. So there's ones that have the glitter, and then there's holographic ones that are just different, and of course there's ones that are normal. And these ones, like the usual ones, they peel clear, so all this white you're not going to see in the background actually. So when you actually peel
what is that you have?
It's the Ruskin Newt
gecko. Newt, okay.
Yeah, Ruskin Newt.
That's awesome.
There's all kinds, man. There's a bunch in here. And I do have a tarantula. I have a couple actually, but I need to make a lot more. I have a cobalt blue holographic tarantula sticker though. I don't know if you have that one or not.
I don't. I was just thinking, like, I don't have, none of them are tarantulas. I got a lot of beetles and mantis and scorpions, whip scorpion. Like,
right.
They're awesome. And I actually haven't stuck any of them anywhere because I'm like, where I want to put it's like a couple, like the scorpion and the whip scorpion. They're like black, and I'm like, these will look really good on my car. So that's probably where they're going to end up, because I've got a couple other spider stickers on there. But the other ones, I'm like, I want to do something special with them. So they're just in a cardboard envelope right now, where they're like in my desk, very safe and secure.
Yeah, I have some pretty avid collectors that collect every sticker that come out, and I really, as someone that is a collector, I really do keep things limited. I'm not BSing in that area. Like a lot of people, like I remember when Beanie Babies came out, and they were like, oh, they're so limited, and then like they were like selling their own product for like hundreds of dollars because they're limited. I'm like, that is a load of crap. Mm-hmm. That is saturating the market. That it's garbage. I will never sell something for more expensive just because it's more rare. If I have it, I'm going to sell it at the price it was, and people can buy it, and then they could resell it if they want. The resale value, that's not in my hands, but I definitely make things limited. Like some of my stickers, I've only produced like 50 of them. So that's like all that exists. And some of them, there's like 10 stickers ever made of this like particular one, and you had to get it at a certain time, and that's it. That's the only time I'm going to sell it. So I just, and it's kind of what?
This isn't my full-time job. Like I would like it to be at some point. Like I've kind of transitioned to part-time doing podcasts and videos and pictures and stuff. But I still have to go to work 3 days a week, and that job is like, and it was like 6 days a week. So I've pulled back a little bit so I could focus more on this. But that job was like I dealt with coin collectors, and like it was, I bought and sold, well, mainly just bought gold, diamonds, and coins. Like and that, like, it was so frustrating. So that people would come in with this huge coin collection of stuff that was sold to them as collectible, limited edition, and it's like that was all retail marketing, buddy. Like they made that collection until people stopped buying it, And then that's where the limited edition kicked in. Like, okay, we sold 1 million of them and nobody's buying them anymore. So now we're not going to make them anymore. It's technically limited edition. It's
right.
Like, yeah. Everyone that bought it to collect it. So it never got used, never taken out of its, like every single one they sold is still in that exact same condition. And it's worth less now than it was when you actually bought it.
When you actually bought it.
So sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
to be the person to tell you this.
It's just a scam in retail, you know, and that's just it is. And that's why, I mean, I'm not making the stickers because I want people to collect them. I want people to enjoy them and stick them and do whatever they want with them. But I love the aspect of there being so many different species, you know, like when you go to my website, shapesofnature.com, you'll see at the very front, it says, welcome to a world of wildlife. And that's what I want my website to be. You go on there and it's just like an abundance of just all these amazing species drawn, and you can get stickers or patches. I'm even going to start collabing with other people that are really getting into the sticker industry. And really into conservation as well. And we're going to do some like collab mystery packs and donate percentages or donate the money to different organizations and whatnot, which I'm really excited about too. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you just read my mind because I was about ready to ask you if you are familiar with Danny from Keeper Cards, if you're familiar with that, that whole line of products.
I think I'm familiar.
Yeah. He makes, I think I've got them in my desk here, but they're these really cool cards. They're limited. Some of them are limited edition. But you know, I don't know how well you.
Oh, those are legit.
But it's like it's got like, you know, the scientific name and the common name and a couple of pictures and then just information on it, like you know, just a little bit about their temperament and where they're from and some information on how to keep them, and they're really cool and they're collectible. And he and I are actually I don't know. Well, we haven't. I probably shouldn't be talking about it, but I mean, we're over 2 hours in the podcast.
Why not?
Nobody's probably listening. It's going to wrap me out. But he and I actually have been talking about doing a collab on a special kind of limited edition. There'll only be 100 of them made. Like a kind of like, it's just a cool thing that's taking what I do and what he does and finding a middle ground. So they're not going to be keeper cards, but they're going to be something that I do or enjoy and what he does, like as far as cards. And I think that it would be because he's wanting to expand beyond tarantula. That's why he didn't call them tarantula keeper cards. Like, he wants to get into scorpions and other arthropods and insects. And I think you two should get together and talk, because I think that you have, you know, especially people like you and Aaron from Arthropods Ambassadors, Peter from Bugs in Cyberspace. You guys have really, you know a lot about that aspect of the hobby, and there's a lot of information that I think you guys could find some middle ground and you could help, you know, kind of get the word out about what you all are doing, you know, through his avenue. Because they're taking off, you know, they're doing really well.
That's awesome.
He just came out with a second expansion pack. And I mean, he does it through Kickstarter. So he was, whatever his goal was, he like tripled it before like the 30 days are up. So, I mean, people are interested in that stuff. And I know that they're hungry for more and things beyond just tarantulas. People are wanting centipedes and scorpions, and beetles and all kinds of stuff. So I'll try to introduce you guys, because I think that, you know, it help each other out, you know, and just kind of interconnect everything in the hobby. No. So you got your website where people can go and get stickers and shirts and find out more information. I've got it actually scrolling across the bottom of the screen for anybody that's watching this on YouTube.
You could also look on my website, and it will show the conservation efforts that we're working with currently. We have a media page that you can see all that kind of stuff too, what we've donated. And you could, any shirt that you see on there, you can actually go click on it and it'll tell you whether it's going to a conservation effort. I have a salmon shirt right now, and it's going to Save Our Salmon, SOS. And 30% or 25%, I can't remember if it's 30%, it might be 30%. But anyways, so you can go look all that stuff up on there and whatnot. And of course, you know, if you have any, if anyone ever has any questions, they can always contact me. I love talking to people. So, you know.
What's the best way to contact you? Like Instagram or email?
Instagram's probably easiest. You can contact me through my website if you want. You can always message me on Instagram. I'm on there pretty active. I'm pretty active on TikTok as well. So if whatever avenue you need.
And you do live streams, or is that what they call them on Instagram?
Yeah,
you go live. And
so that's
when does that happen? Like at a regular time every week, or is it just kind of sporadic? Or
It was weekly, but since it's got kind of cold, we're doing it once a month right now. But that's with my co-host, which is Peter from Bugs in Cyberspace. And what we do is it's called Shapes in Nature Live Animal Talk. And we generally talk about a certain animal or a certain subject about like conservation of the animal or protecting of that species or an animal in general. But we get pretty specific. What I like about the lives is that we really are talking to experts about stuff. So we had someone that, studies sharks on there. We had Sherman from Trunks and Leaves just recently. That was the most recent one. We talked all about like, agriculture and the problems that elephants face with that and how they're helping that situation and all that kind of stuff. So, and so then we also like talked about, we talked with Lohit from Mantidiology and, he just talked about mantids. So we kind of like make it fun, we do conservation, but we also just talk about the animal in general and do a little bit of show and tell. We want to get you on sometime, of course, show some tarantulas. It's always a good time, So,
yeah. Unfortunately, I'm no expert, but it'd be fun to come and talk. How do people find out? Because like, I'm not complaining. Like I've been able to sit in on a few of them, like, watch a few of your live streams that you guys do, but it's always, I never know that it's happening until like I get on Instagram and it says like, Shapes in Nature is live or Bugs in Cyberspace is live. And I'm like, oh, what are they doing? And then I'm watching. I'm like, oh man, I wish I had been able to get on the first half of this. Like how can people find out when you're doing it? And do you have it available for people that missed the live to be able to watch this stuff later on?
So we have right now we're only on Podbean because I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get the podcast on everything else. I keep trying to like have it attached to like Apple Podcasts and different ones, and it keeps saying some weird code. It's like, you're not able to do that. And I do like everything that it's telling me to do, and I'm like, I can't figure this out. So right now it's only on Podbean, but we are focusing on, maybe you can help me with that. You probably know that stuff pretty well. But we also have, I do put them up on YouTube. I'm actually working on the elephant one right now to get that up. So I'll probably try to get that up by Monday or Tuesday. But as far as like a list, I need to get better at having a list. I'm going to put on my website. I'm going to put on my website an entire category. Once we get like dates nailed down, I had some dates, but we've already gone through them. So, and because of the cold weather, we've kind of like slowed it down a little bit, but, we will be having a calendar, and I will start putting that on Instagram as well. But I do, every time we do a talk, generally the day before or 2 days before, I make a post about it. I do make a post about it that says the date and time it's happening, and I give people a heads up. And then usually I'll put in my story area, and I'll also, the day before, I always put a story mention like saying, hey, we're going live in 2 hours or whatever. So
yeah, that's kind of the downside to Instagram. Like with YouTube, if I'm doing something live, I can set it up a week ahead of time, and have it just sitting there, and people are getting, notifications and stuff like that. And then when we go live, they get notifications, and it's something that's sitting there that you can share, and that people can be like, oh, in 2 days he'll be live, and I can set a reminder to remind myself, through YouTube or whatever. And it seems like with Instagram, it's kind of like the algorithm's different. So sometimes like I won't see posts in my feed from people, and I'm like, wait, I haven't seen a picture from this person in a while. And then I go to their actual wall or whatever, their feed, and I'm like, oh, okay, I did, for whatever reason they didn't put that in my feed for like the past 4 days. I haven't been missing it. So it would be cool to, and I'm not like trying to tell you what to do or anything. I'm just saying for my own selfish personal needs, it would be nice to have somewhere I can go and be like, okay, I'm wondering, that's when they're going to be on. I'll set that aside.
I think, there's those little like bubbles on Instagram that you can like put posts on there. And I'm wondering if that's something I can try and attempt to do, is put a little bubble thing that says like the lives. And so it can like give you like past ones and next ones and ones that are coming up and stuff like that. I could always try throwing in there. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I know Peter said the same thing. We're both just like, how do we get this like more known? And we actually I only have 176 followers on my YouTube channel. And that's also because I don't have a whole lot of content on my YouTube channel, but definitely give it a follow if you guys haven't already, because we will be doing a lot soon, especially when we go to India and whatnot. There will be a lot of cool content on there. And I want to get to 1,000 followers so I can go live on YouTube instead, because that's where I really want to go live.
That's Shapes in Nature is just the name of the YouTube channel?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, everybody go check them out, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff you got to feed the algorithm. And it's half of what I do is behind the scenes stuff that nobody really, I think, even considers like trying to figure out how these algorithms work on all these different social media platforms is like, I mean, just what you're talking about, trying to figure out how to get your podcast from that one platform onto all the other platforms. Like I delayed this podcast for 6 to 8 weeks just because I was trying to navigate that. Like, how can I upload it to the platform I'm using and it get dispersed to Spotify and Apple and Buzzsprout, Buzzsprout. And I mean, just Google Podcasts, like they all have their own little hoops to jump through. And I mean, Apple, if you can conquer Apple, you got like 80% of them because that's most of those platforms use Apple as their base. You know, if you upload something to Apple, then it gets dispersed to a whole lot of different platforms. But it is a minefield and back and forth. It's so frustrating.
It's craziness. You know?
So I feel you. But it's like I had to jump through all that hoops to figure this out for podcasts, and then it's a whole completely different bunch of red tape for YouTube, and a complete TikTok is still a mystery to me. Like I'll be posting videos regularly every day.
I'm very
nothing
fortunate
happens
with TikTok because I actually am kind of a part of this like TikTok crew, and they're good friends of mine. But one of my friends has 8 million followers on TikTok, and the other has like almost 2 million, and they're helping me with my channel, and they're amazing at it, obviously. And they are like, you know, what's funny is I kind of judged a lot of the influencers, you know, like YouTube influencers and like TikTok people. Like I was like, oh, I just always assume they're just like so full of themselves, and all they do is they carry their camera around. That's all about life, you know. Dude, these people are some of the most genuine, like wonderful people ever. Like they're so cool, and like they just want to help other people too. They're like all about helping other people, and like they're just like, yeah, like, you know, and they've given me such great info, and I'm like, I was so wrong about your type of people. You know, like I mean, I'm sure like, you know, I mean, I'm sure just how I get judged for collecting bugs, you know. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, there's always that kind of aspect, but I know. I'm
definitely at no influencer level, but my whole mentality from the very beginning has been rising tide, you know, lifts all ships, you know, so I'm all for helping out anybody I can in any way I can, because I know the more you succeed, the more I'm going to succeed, the more the entire hobby and space and niche is all going to succeed. So, you know, it's awesome. Like, how do I get on this TikTok crew that you're on? Because I'm struggling, man.
Got to move to Oregon.
I think, apparently. Like, I've got like 13,000 followers or something, but the majority of that,
you know,
I think is just because it's just people from YouTube, you know, for whatever reason, you know, they're like, oh, you're on TikTok too, I'll follow you there. But it's like, when it comes to video views, like, I'm good if I break 1,000 views on a video. It's hard. And then I see these other guys that are like Peter. Oh my gosh, Peter's a freaking maniac on these Instagram
he knows
and TikTok.
His stuff, man. Well, you know, one thing I will give you advice on, and I can give this advice to anyone, is so there's a big difference between TikTok and Instagram, is what I learned. Instagram, you want to have all those hashtags, right? And so like you have all these hashtags for your Instagram, you know, what you post and whatnot. On TikTok, it's actually the opposite. It's actually better to have less hashtags. And it's because what happens is the focus is more on those less hashtags rather than dispersing that amongst a bunch of other ones. And so this is just what I've been told. I am no expert in this either. Like, I'm just getting started. Like, but basically, like, I only put 2 to 3 hashtags on every one of my videos. That's it. Like, it's not on Instagram. I put as many as I can in Instagram because it's a totally different algorithm. But when it comes to like TikTok, you want to put like, and you want to focus on your hashtags. Like if you're doing a hashtag that's like hashtag tarantula love or something like that, and like there's only like 2 million views on it from TikTok, like it shows you, you know, like it's not even worth putting that hashtag up. Like, no, who cares? You know, you want something that says like, you know, 30 billion views, you know, like I put a hashtag FYP, you know, for your page or whatever. And I didn't even know what that meant. And I'm so illiterate because of this stuff, man. Like, you know, I just like bugs. Okay. You know, I just like to draw.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel you. And, like, that's not the aspect that I enjoy. But when I started on TikTok, I was doing what I did on Instagram, and like as many as it would let me. And I'm like, and I wasn't seeing the return on the investment. So like at least I learned through YouTube is that you gotta change things up and test things. So then I went from like an abundance of like just nothing but hashtags to cut it down to like just a few hashtags and see how that does. Did that for a few months, and like right now I'm in the testing phase of like no hashtags. Like I just say the link to my channel in the bio, and that's it. No hashtags at all. And seeing how those do. trying to figure it out. Because even
right.
like what works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else. It's also, like it's just the way these algorithms are weird.
It's also weird because TikTok, like, it's like they just sometimes are like, all right, we'll give this person a chance, and they'll give you like, they'll let you have some views, you know, like sometimes like it's just like it's just a bad day, you know, and it's kind of how it is. But you know, what's hard is for me, it's like, you know, I spend all this time making some funny video, you know, and I spend all this time making some video and doing all this editing and stuff, and it's like 61 views in an hour, and I'm like, I spent like so long, like I was so passionate about this, like 61 views, this is all I get, you know, like come on, you know, like, it's just like fine.
I mean, that's not just TikTok though. YouTube does that too. Like this last video I came out with was on clown isopods, and I don't know if you've ever tried filming isopods with macro lenses, but they can be very fast and they don't stand still, and it requires a whole lot of light when you're doing macro video, which they don't like light. You know, so I turn on all this light, and they're like, "Let's go hide under something." So then I flip it over, and by the time I get them in focus, they're all like they're running to hide again. And it took me so many hours and so much frustration. And man, I'm sure my wife and kid were upstairs like, "What is he doing down there? He's cussing so much." Like, you were inventing really letting these isopods have it. I'm just letting them. I'm just every word I could think of is coming out towards these. They're just like, leave me alone. Like I'm just trying to live my best life here. Why do you keep flipping over my logs? But I spent so much time, and then so I'd only have all these like small little clips, and then I have to edit hours of footage down to these like 5 or 6 seconds that it was in focus, and I felt like I poured my heart and soul into this video, and it was actually from Russ from Aquariumax. You friends with him?
Oh yeah,
he's in your little group, I think. Yeah, he's a great guy, and he sent those to me, and I really wanted to show him off the best I could and give him credit for it. And I spent all this time, man, and I made this video and I put it out, and it was like YouTube just is like, this is your lowest performing video.
Nah.
Like 10 out of 10.
Yeah, right.
Normally at this point you'd have 6,000 views. Right now you have 1.9 thousand, and I'm like, what the hell? Like I've worked so hard on this, did everything I normally would, and it just didn't perform for whatever. It could have been the thumbnail, could have been the content itself. People weren't interested in.
Right. Oh,
it's frustrating, but it's like I just got to move on. But I've had that experience before where I put a video out and it just will do crap. Like nobody's watching it for months, and I've moved on, gotten over it, and then I check my analytics one day and I'm like, whoa, that video just gained 50 views. Like, what happened? Like,
where'd that come
it's
from?
weird.
Yeah, YouTube is kind of a different thing, and I'm still learning YouTube quite a bit. But that's really the route I want to take. But you know, it's funny. What's funny for TikTok? Like, I swear, the other day I spent like all this time. We went out into nature. I was hiking up in the snow. I was getting like all these beautiful shots, and I made this like really awesome, fun video about like hiking in winter and stuff, you know, and like posted it, and it's like 120 views. And then like the other day, I was just like, well, I just need to post something real quick. So I just like found like some clip of a spider, right? That there was a spider I did, and it just like took off running, and all I did was put a little sound effect to it. And the video did like amazing. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, hold on, you know?
Well, that was, you're talking about the, I don't know what kind of spider it was, but it's like sitting in its web.
Spider,
and
goes, yeah. Oh yeah.
That was an awesome video, dude.
But people did not believe that they're like, you sped that up. And I was like, dude, I didn't. Those things are the speed of light. I actually was.
I mean, I don't know how many views that video has, but I was probably at least 100 of them because I just kept watching it over and over again. Like, wow, that is so fast. That is awesome.
Oh, I know, dude. I love it. I love that video, and I'm gonna actually make a full video on those guys, and I want to do like a whole segment of just them running, just ding, ding, ding. You know, like it's just cool.
That was cool.
I actually have one. I have a giant house spider right now, and she's pretty big. She's a good size, you know.
Yeah.
But so fast, like just I can't even hardly film her because if I take her out, she'll just be gone. You know. Like
yeah, I've got some like that as well. I mean, I just want to point out to all the listeners that we are two grown men talking about TikTok.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not just for kids anymore, guys. Come on.
Right.
There's some cool content on there. There's some great. You've met? Oh man, I'm gonna Jessie Arachna Girl.
Oh, Jessica Arachnid?
Man, I can't.
Jessica Arachnid?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
She's got some amazing TikTok videos.
Yeah,
you know, and it's
awesome.
Like she's on Instagram as well. She's actually going to come on the podcast. She was going to just with Christmas and everything. I'm like, let me. We had a death in our family. I think oh no, my wife had surgery like the day before I was supposed to interview her. And I'm like, look, this is, my wife's lit up a lot more than either one of us anticipated. Like she can't get off the couch and we've got the granddaughter here. There's no way I can have a couple hours to sit down and talk to you. That would be undisturbed. So we'll reschedule it after the holidays, but I'm excited to talk to her, but I would never have, I mean, she's like in Pennsylvania, I believe. Like she's not that far from me, or it's Pennsylvania. So she's like hours, like 8 hours away from me or whatever, but still it's like the next state over.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who she was until I saw her TikTok videos. And then I was like, found her on Instagram and was like, oh, wow. You know, and it's somebody can have millions of views and subscribers on TikTok and just not, for whatever reason, YouTube, they don't have that because it's a different format. It's different content.
YouTube, I heard is like the hardest social media outlet to gain organic reach or something like that. It's just like,
oh man,
easy.
Yeah, it is not.
But your channel,
and I'd be happy. Man, and I'll, maybe if you're interested, I actually was thinking about doing like a live stream, something just for tarantula YouTubers or like YouTubers because like I'm no exotic slayer. That dude's got millions of subscribers. Dark Den's got, I think he's over 500,000 at least.
Right,
he's not, he's maybe like 750. He's getting close to 1 million. So I don't have that kind of growth, but I also haven't been doing it as long as they have. And the thing with YouTube is that sometimes you just need that one video that goes viral. And then all of a sudden you added 200,000 subscribers overnight. It's fickle in that way. You can grind and work hard, but I did a lot of research before I put my first video out there about how to have a successful YouTube channel, because I was like, I don't want to breed tarantulas and sell them. Like that's not but I'm so passionate about tarantulas and scorpions that I was like, it would be amazing if this could be my job. I didn't have to work with coins. And I like my job. It's a good job for a guy like me that has a real issue with authority and keeping a job for more than a few years. You know what I mean? Like I get so, it's like, my dad was self-employed and, growing up, like he was his own boss and he was like, all right, he didn't even retire. He just died. And he's like, I wanted to turn this business over to you. And I'm like, yeah, I got no interest in that, man. Like, sorry. But he was a salesman. He sold like advertising stuff, like T-shirts and pins and stuff like that to businesses. And I'm like, that was great for you, but that's not me, man. I'm not a door-to-door salesman like that. And I apprenticed with him, which was a way of him saying I was free labor for many years. I did a lot of the work for him and he didn't pay me. He was like, oh, I'm teaching you how to take over the business one day. And it's like, oh no, this is child labor. Like I should report you to the authorities. But I was like, how can I make my love for the tarantula? Like, and then you found a great way of getting your art and your interest in insects into something that could be viable or is viable for you. And that's what that's why I ended up doing YouTube. Because I was like, that's at least with YouTube, even if it's only that CPM, which is like how much money you make per 1,000 views.
Right.
Especially, just for people and pets is really low. Like do it on real estate, on insurance, on finance. And you've got to, they're paying you a lot. The advertisers will pay a lot for that. Make it on tarantulas. People are like, who's advertising to the tarantula niche? You know what I mean?
Right.
Not even like Exoterra or Zilla. They could really care less about. I think one company finally came out with an enclosure. I think it was Zilla. No. Yeah. I don't remember. I think it was who it was. That was like an enclosure, an acrylic enclosure just for insects like tarantulas and bandises and stuff.
Wait, hold on.
But other than that,
I got it though. Where is that?
Oh, do you?
Yeah, right. The micro is by Zilla. Micro.
Yeah, is that not one right behind you?
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have one right here, and I have one right there. They're awesome.
Are they? Like I saw them in the pet store, and I was like, I'm gonna buy that and bring it back and do a video on it, comparing it to other enclosures I have.
I love it.
And do you? Because I was like, I'm just gonna roast them, and then I was like, they're like $30. I was like, I don't really want to do that. Like, I don't want to burn bridges before they're even built. Well, maybe one day they'll be like, hey, we want to work with you on this. So I didn't want to like burn that bridge, and I didn't want to spend the money.
Well, I like it because you can film. They're all glass. They're see-through around the whole thing. So it's actually like you don't even sometimes have to open the like terrarium. Like sometimes sometimes you see a bug doing something or some kind of insect doing something, and you're like, oh, I just want to film that. But if you open the lid, it'll completely disturb it. But this thing, all I
Yeah,
gotta
that
do is
doesn't
just
work.
film it, and it's like, boom, it's doing its thing, and I'm done. I don't have to disturb it in any way, shape, or form. So it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like about Tarantula Cribs Enclosures. Are you familiar with that business? Man, they've got.
Hold on 1 second.
They're not paying me to say this. People they were actually on the podcast. I've done a few videos. They've sponsored some videos before, so I should say that for, I don't know if it's ethical or legal reasons. Like, they have been a sponsor, but they're not sponsoring this. It's just my personal opinion. Those are some great enclosures.
Right.
And I like them a lot for that reason. One, the lid is so secure when it locks into place, but also the acrylics just really, I can film right through it. Well, most of the time. Sometimes tarantulas are jerks, and they're like, for no reason, I'm just going to put a sheet of web over this.
And
I'm not going to use it for anything.
Yeah.
I just want to block your camera's clarity.
Right.
It's like, hey, you jerk.
Speaking of cameras, my camera that I was using to film this is dead. It died.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we really need to wrap it up. This is going much longer than I thought. I was trying to get to that, but then we keep going off on tangents.
Yeah, I just looked up and I went, that's not red anymore. I don't know how long it's been dead, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I used to be a lot more aware of that, but I bought this little battery thing. I take the battery out of my camera, and it's a fake battery that goes up in there, but then plugs into the wall. So now it just goes forever.
Oh man, great. Yeah. I should have tried to plug in my phone, but I had full power. I had full power, so I was like, oh, we'll be fine, And then I was wrong.
I'll figure it out. Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I'm sorry to take up so much of your time.
Dude, no, it was great. I had a great time.
Yeah, but I told you we'll start talking, and we just lose track of time. I'm sure my kid did not, because he can't get on his Xbox until I'm done recording. So he's probably up there sitting at the door,
so
like,
mad right
I gotta get on Fortnite, man. My friends are playing Fortnite. Yeah,
we just got.
He's a good
we just
kid.
got. What game did we? Oh, we got Immortals, Rise of the Phoenix or Rise of Phoenix. It's a game that we got on Switch. It's awesome. It's like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but Greek mythology.
I like Zelda.
It's so cool. It's awesome. Right. It's fun. I know.
I got my kid a Switch a couple years ago. Actually, I think his stepsister did, or grandparents or something. He got him a Switch, and then he was like, he liked it so much, I was never allowed to touch it, because if it was charged, it was in his hands and he was playing it.
Right.
So I was like, that's your toy. I'll let you do that. And then it switched for, I don't know what the reason, Minecraft maybe. It was like, we needed to get an Xbox. So I was like, all right, we'll get you an Xbox One, because I was like, I'm a huge Halo person.
Yep.
And that probably dates me, but like, that's what I like to play. So I was all for getting an Xbox, to be honest. And I had to hide it. Like, well, you got to earn it. You're the only one that'll be playing it. Right, so we gotta, and,
but really,
and the whole time, like, it was already bought. I just had to be a parent. And then, it came, and I'm not a huge video game guy, but I was back in the day. And
same.
We were talking about Final Fantasy, and I'm like, you need to play Final Fantasy X, because you don't know what a good game is until you play that.
The beast sword, man. The beast sword where you catch the beast. It was like, oh, dude, I went nuts.
So I'm in a very fortunate situation sometimes with my job, because like I said, we mainly buy gold and coins and stuff like that. But occasionally somebody comes in with a computer or a camera or something like that, and they don't want to pawn it, because pawn shops give you crap. And it's like, but we sell a lot of our coins on eBay. So if it's somebody's trying to sell us something that I think I can sell on eBay, I can pay them a lot more than a pawn shop will, and we'll do that to turn a buck and stay in business. But sometimes it's also like, I will pay you for what I would give you to sell it on eBay, but I'm just going to keep it for myself. So somebody came in with a PS4, and it was like, I'll pay you more than a pawn shop will, but it's going into my basement. I don't tell them that.
Right. Totally.
So I'm able to get these sometimes at a pretty good deal. So I got that, and he was like, why do we need a PlayStation 4? And I'm like, because we're going to play Final Fantasy X. And I was so excited to show it to him. And it was like the updated version, they redid all the graphics and stuff. So I was like super impressed. I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And he's like, this is like, I could get this on my iPad. This is not an impressive video game at all. I'm like, come on, dude.
Come on.
Get past the graphics.
But
focus on the gameplay.
Have you seen they remade Final Fantasy VII? And have you seen the?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
No.
dude! So they're it's in different parts too, and the graphics are insane in this game. And the fighting style is different. It isn't a turn-based RPG. It's you actually are just like battling the whole time, but it's all the same bad guys, Seth Roth and everyone, and it's awesome. And it's apparently going to be sold in 3 parts. So the first part is you're just getting out of Shinra, and it's just like. It was awesome. I was just like, wow. It was almost too much, because like I played the old one so much, I was like, this is almost like, wait a minute, like, I don't play a whole lot of games, but that's one of them I do.
Yeah. I was going to say this podcast just took a really nerdy left turn. And I'm like, well, it was a podcast about insects and bugs. It was already like, pretty nerdy.
Yeah. Oh, in case you don't know, so I'm a huge nerd.
Changed
I don't
lanes.
know if you knew that or not, but
yeah. Well, my name is Richard. I am also a nerd.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I do have a basement full of tarantulas and scorpions and Star Trek memorabilia.
Nice. Oh man.
Every now and then somebody will see like the I got the Enterprise, like a little poster, NCC 1701D behind me, and somebody will recognize it even though it's blurry. And they're like, "Is that the Starship? Is that the Star Trek Enterprise ship behind you?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Good eye.
It very well might be." I hate to admit this. I'm a huge Star Wars person, but I do like Star Trek a lot, and I finally finished Next Gen. I'm working on it. I'm working my way up.
Nice.
I've seen all the old stuff. Yeah. That was hard to get through. I won't lie. I am not, and this is I am not a William Shatner fan. The guy is just such. I just can't stand the guy. I met him at Comic-Con, and that guy is one of the like most horrible people I've ever met in my life. So it's hard to watch him, but. I do love Spock. I love me some Leonard Nimoy. I absolutely love that guy.
Yeah. My wife never watched Star Trek before we got married, and I did. And still to this day, I don't think I've shown her any of the original series. And it's like the only reason, like I was into Star Trek before The Next Generation because my dad was into Star Trek and he had all the episodes on VHS. So that was like, we would just be nothing good on TV because we didn't have cable, and he'd be like, go grab an episode of Star Trek. And he had like, we had VHS tapes, but then we had, I don't even know what you would call it. It was like a cabinet or that's not the word, shelves or whatever, like a bookcase that was just made for each little slot would fit a VHS tape. And it was just the entire series of Star Trek. So I would be like a little kid and go pick one up and then we'd watch it. And so I grew up like that was the TV show that I grew up on. So when The Next Generation came out, it was like a huge event for our family. And we would all
I like Next Gen.
Around, watch the new episode.
It's cool.
Yeah. That's what I started my wife on initially. The first season's a little low budget, a little rough. And she was like, yeah, this is corny. I don't like it. And then so I was like, all right, don't watch it. And she'd go to bed and I'd keep watching. I mean, it's like every year I watch a season of Star Trek, and I just keep, it's just this thing that happens every year. It's like, well, this is the season for this year, or the series for this year. And I watched the entire series of Next Generation while she was, she'd go to bed before me. So I'd watch that after she would go to sleep. And then she came in while I was watching an episode of Deep Space Nine, which is like not my favorite series. I've grown to appreciate it a lot more than I did when it first came out, but she fell in love with it, man. Like she was like awesome. So fascinated by it. I'm like, this is the series you like? Like, all right. So we watched that entire thing and she's like, I need more. And I'm like, all right, let's watch Voyager. And then we went back to The Next Generation. Now she's all in Discovery and Picard and all the new ones.
Have you seen Picard? It's so good.
Oh man, if it's Star Trek, I've seen it.
Yeah, dude. I want to start Discovery, but I should probably watch Deep Space Nine next. I think is probably my next thing I'm going to watch next on Star Trek. Yeah. But I really like Discovery, and one person that's in Discovery is someone that I actually personally used to know. Is Doug Jones?
No way.
Yeah. So
which one? What character is he?
Doug Jones. He's the I think the captain. He's like the alien guy that's in it. Sulu.
Oh,
or not Sulu. Not Sulu. What's his name? Gosh, I haven't seen it. I haven't watched the show at all yet. But he's in it. He's
the Denoblian. Is that what he was?
Yeah.
Saru is the character's name.
Saru, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Saru is. That's a cool character arc. Like it's one of the first times I think that an alien has actually been a captain, a main character in any series, which is pretty rad. Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah, Doug Jones is cool.
I don't know anybody.
I mean, I don't like. I'm not like best friends with him, but I met him a lot through Comic-Con before he was really that popular, and we talked all the time. And he was a pretty cool guy. And then he got famous. Like he got really. Now he's like one of the most sought after like creature characters. You know, like you know.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, now this podcast has just turned into a Star Trek podcast, so I think we should wrap it up.
Okay, all right.
If anybody's still listening, you'll have to come back on again, man. There's still so much to talk about. This was really easy to talk to you.
Oh, yeah,
I really
definitely
enjoyed it. So
yeah,
hopefully people enjoy listening to it as
we
much
could probably
as I
cut
enjoyed
this
recording.
podcast down so much. We can wait for when you repost.
It'll be a 2-part series.
Yeah, right. Seriously,
but I'll be honest, that's the cool thing about podcasts. It could be 45 minutes or it could be 4 hours long. And, you know, if sometimes people will listen to it. It's weird. Yeah. I listen to podcasts.
Dude, I put podcasts on all the time.
Is...
I put podcasts when I'm on road trips. It's the best time to listen to a podcast. You're just like on the road. You're just like listening, you know, and it's like sometimes like, you know, after driving for like 4 hours, you're like, I don't want to listen to another song. Like I can't listen to music right now. You know, it's been like 4 hours, you know? So
the first few podcasts I did, I was like, it's going to keep it under an hour, and people listened to them, and there was good response. And then I had some that were 2 hours, and then I did another one that was like 45 minutes. People were like, that was way too short. We need more content. And I'm like, all right. We'll just let it go. I'm not going to police it. But I do appreciate you coming on, man, and I'd love to have you on again. And it would be really cool if we could get both you and Peter on. At some point. Can you with this, like a three-way.
With this program, this StreamYard? Is that what this is? Right? Can you put more than 2 people on here?
I pay for like the first level of it, a monthly fee, and I think I can have up to 10 people. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, then that'll be. I might actually switch over to this too for when I interview people.
Yeah, it's only like $10 a month or something for like it's free, but you know you pay a nominal fee, and then you can have like up to 10 people, and like the little banner that going across the bottom, you get the ability to do that and stuff like that. It's not too bad. Of course, they're always trying to be like, sell me the $40 a month package or something, so it will be in 1080p instead of 720.
It's
like
700.
It's a podcast
at the same time.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll definitely have to do that for the future. And I wanted to give a shout out to Erin from Arthropod Ambassadors, because she's been in your corner from day one. Like I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast. She's like, you got to get Jesse from Shapes of Nature on.
Man, Erin's awesome.
Okay.
And you know, she doesn't live that far from us. Like when this COVID stuff's over, I'm really hoping that she'll come adventure with us too, because like she lives like maybe an hour and a half or something like that from us. I think she lives in like Eugene or something like that. It's like not far from Portland.
I asked her, I was like, I would really like to have you on the podcast, because a lot of people that are asking about mantis, and you know, like you know a lot, and it would be great to have you on. She's like, well, I can't do your podcast until you have Jesse from Shapes of Nature on, and Peter. I'm like, they'll be on, I promise. Like
they'll be there. I mean, yeah, you know, it's funny. I'm in the pet hobby, yet I'm not. I don't sell bugs, you know, like I don't sell pets, you know, but I get a lot of messages. People are always like, so do you sell this? I'm like, well, I sell the sticker of that, you know, like I can supply you with a nice fancy
every
sticker.
Every day somebody's like, hey, do you have this in stock? I'm like, I don't have anything in stock. This is my private collection. You can't touch it. Like I'm not selling to anybody.
I am sold out indefinitely. So, you know,
I kind of feel like sometimes it's a missed marketing opportunity. Like, man, if my business was selling tarantulas, then I totally would make a YouTube channel about tarantulas.
Oh, right.
People seem to really want to buy the ones that I show. That's why I'm like, hey, people that sell tarantulas, like tarantula dealers, you should advertise on my show. I can make a little bit of money. Right. You're going to make some money.
Well, you're going to love the next shirt I'm coming out with. I'm coming out with an arachnid shirt. It's kind of like my I'd rather be bug hunting shirt, but it has a bunch of different arachnids. I've been drawing a whole bunch of different ones, and it says all my friends have 8 legs. So it'll be a good one.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, I'll definitely have to get that one.
Right.
Well, thank you. So everybody listening, make sure you check out Shapes in Nature. His website scrolling across the bottom of the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, shapesinnature.com. He's also on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, starting a new YouTube channel very soon, all with the same name. So please go support him, check him out, buy some stickers, buy some T-shirts, and help him, and, you know, do some little conservation work. It's pretty cool.
Please.
So thank you again, man. I appreciate having you on.
Hey, it was fun. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Well, guys, everybody, thank you for listening. You can find us, I upload every Thursday on every podcast platform that you can find, as well as YouTube. So make sure you subscribe, follow, like, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye. All right, we are out.
All right. Wow, that went a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
My girlfriend kept like popping in and be like, "You're still on?" I'm like, yeah. You know.
I am. Please apologize for me.
No, she's fine.